Good evening, race fans everywhere. Welcome to this edition of the Burn and Rubber Racing Podcast for Saturday, February the 15th, 2025. Sterling Price joined by Justin Palmer and Hal Estep. Gentlemen, this is a special edition of Burn and Rubber that we're broadcasting tonight. The Xfinity Series race has just wrapped up. An outstanding performance by Jesse Love to win the season opener at Daytona, his second career win in the Xfinity Series, second on a super speedway, if you can believe it, or a drafting track, I guess as they would say it now. But he gets it done, brings home another victory for RCR, holds off the field to do it. And that leads into what we're going to talk about first, the Xfinity Series race. Really good show, as we've come to expect from the Xfinity Series. The RCR guys really dominated. It was Jesse Love who led a good bit of the race, but it was his teammate, Austin Hill, who started up near the front and led the most laps, as we've come to expect. And it probably would have been a perfect 4 in a row for Austin Hill to win the season opener. But then the rear end gear gave out, and a mechanical problem basically robbed Austin Hill of making it a perfect 4 for 4.
Tough scenes for Austin Hill. I would hate to say it, but when you have been that good and that lucky to have gotten through 3 spring races at Daytona, you won all of them, you were due for something like that happening. Um, he's as talented as it gets on the super speedways, we know that, and really just an unfortunate turn of events for him. But again, for RCR, even with that, the guy you expect to go in and win doesn't. You're not disappointed. You came out on top anyway.
Yeah, if you're RCR, it's like, well, oh, if one falls, I've got the next best driver up in this race. And Jesse Love was that. Obviously, this was Austin Hill's race to lose. He saw all throughout the course of the race, Austin Hill was making block after block. He was really commanding the entire race up until the point, and they knew they had a problem. We knew that he had a problem. There were fluid coming out on the back end of the CW camera that was on board. We had reports from other cards that this was happening. And unfortunately, NASCAR was not going to allow that team to go back out there with the fluid leaking, which was understandably so, because by the time they came to pit road, that thing was about to go boom. But once the caution came out, we'll talk about that caution, I'm sure. Jesse Love found himself at the front of the race, and if you're not Austin Hill, you might as well be Jesse Love. And Love has been the second best guy now for a year, and I guess +1 in terms of these plate racing tracks. You always have to factor him in. It's why I picked him right behind Austin Hill, because if it wasn't going to be Hill, it was going to be Jesse Love, and a complete dominating day for RCR. You feel bad for Austin Hill. You know his time will come, though, probably next week at Atlanta. Or Talladega. I'm not concerned for Austin Hill's playoff hopes tonight. It's not an end-all be-all. But Jesse Love getting his second career win, it's a great moment. And I had to end under caution, but this is one where it was like, yeah, you had to throw the caution. There was no choice.
Well, yeah. We'll get to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with cautions. We'll get there. We got plenty of time. We'll get there.
This is called foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing. So, anyway, there was, as we mentioned, there was quite a bit that happened in the Xfinity race. It didn't take them long to start wrecking. Lap 5, they had kind of a mini big one of sorts. Brandon Jones got turned out of the pack, took Daniel Dye with him. A lot of cars involved, but it was Jones and Dye who were just out of the race on the spot. Brennan Poole also had some damage, which hampered his race the rest of the night.
His hood blew up that brought up the next caution, which was a scary moment because that happened on the front stretch as well before the exit of pit road.
Right.
The roof of that thing just came, or not the roof of it, but the hood of it came completely off of its seams there.
Yeah. Thankfully, the tethers kept it from flying in the stands, which has happened before. It's not a good feeling. But they kept going. They made it through stage one the rest of the way fine. Stage two, it only got slowed down on the last lap of the stage when Nick Sanchez got turned by, I think it was Sheldon Creed, into the outside wall. We're lucky it wasn't a bigger crash than what it was, because it was just Sanchez who got in the wall. But unfortunately, it was night over for Sanchez as well, which was a shame. He was running third at the time for Big Machine Racing. But anyway, they kept going into stage three, the final stage, and that's when we started seeing smoke coming out from Austin Hill's car, and also smoke from Blaine Perkins's machine for Jordan Anderson Racing. Not sure what happened with Perkins. We haven't gotten a definitive summary of what happened there, but with Austin Hill, it was a rear gear problem. But anyway, they were pretty clean for the most part. They kept it clean all the way through some green flag pit stops, and it was during those pit stops that probably the most infamous moment of the race happened, and probably the most severe case of ARCA brakes I have seen in quite some time. And this isn't even ARCA. I want you to watch. So here's a group coming in. Watch, I think it's this guy here. Watch that car there. Yeah. I mean, what was that? What was that? So I believe they'll show another replay here. That's Chris Wright in the Hour Motorsports number 5. What in God's name is he doing? And at first, one would see that and think, okay, that had to have been a brake failure, right? I mean, he couldn't have had any brakes. But even if you don't have brakes, like if you have a brake problem, even if you don't have brakes, I can't help but think, if you have a brake problem, why not just swerve right to get away from the group that's heading into the pit lane, instead of going in there? And poor Josh Bilicki in the 91, he's just trying to get the pit lane, and Chris Wright going full send, just kamikazes Bilicki at the pit entrance. Now, luckily for Bilicki, he was able to continue somehow. Chris Wright, his night was over. However, to make matters worse, in the infield care center interview, when they were talking to Chris Wright, he said that it was a miscommunication with the spotter, and that he had a braking issue, but that he didn't specifically say the brakes went out. And I heard that and thought, oh God, Chris, that's worse. That's worse. I mean, we went through an entire ARCA race that made me question the quality of driving and the validity of some of the licenses of the people who were competing in that race. You just made them look like choir boys by comparison.
Okay, let's calm down with that, because there's also some double standards being going on right now in the ARCA race, and double talk that we'll get into, in particular what happened after that race. But I was baffled by this. I was dumbfounded, because that car wasn't even going and, trying to slow down. You didn't see any smoke coming out of the back. That thing just rammed in. That thing was going 140 miles an hour, and that thing just rammed into the back.
I mean, forget missing a braking point. He wasn't even close.
Was he trying to, because he would swerve, swerve right, try to avoid the contact with the other guys. If you know you get a brake problem, abort.
At this point, you need to get back on the track, because you're not going to make it.
Yeah. Or spin yourself out, which, granted, NASCAR would be looking at that suspiciously, but at least you would know, hey, nothing I could do. I got to slow this thing down somehow. Now, this was something else. And, none of us really had anything high in regards to Chris Wright when he came into the 5. We all thought that the 5 is a very capable car in the Xfinity Series that can run inside the top 20. It did last year for much of the season. None of us had him in our top 22 at the very minimum. And unfortunately, this is the reason why.
Well, even with our thoughts on Chris Wright's talent level in our motorsports, I don't think this is exactly why. I don't think this entered our minds as a thing that any driver in the Xfinity series would do.
I
um,
mean, at this level, no.
no, not at all. I'm gonna be honest. I was working when this incident happened. I look at my phone, I see my God, Chris Wright, and I don't know where we're at in the race at this point. I think he might have just won the thing, as far as I know. This was not what I expected to open up when I looked up Chris Wright on X, Twitter, whatever. This was not what I expected to see because it's the last thing you expect to happen on pit road. And the explanation leaves a lot to be desired because I don't know what miscommunication with your spotter leads to you not looking through the windshield anymore.
I was exactly, and props to Parker Kligerman, the CW's one of the color commentators for the CW broadcast crew. Who, by the way, I want to give them props. They did an outstanding job. Adam Alexander, Jamie McMurray, Parker Kligerman, all of them. They did a really, really good job. And the CW coverage, I'll be honest here, it blew Fox's coverage out of the water. It's a night and day difference. But Parker Kligerman, after hearing that explanation that Chris Wright gave about how there was a miscommunication with the spotter, Parker Kligerman said, "Well, last I checked, the spotter is not the one who hits the brake pedal."
And look, we've had some questionable driver errors throughout the course of the weekend. Let's not just include Chris Wright in that. There's been several.
Foreshadowing.
There's been several, and it's not just at the lower levels either, where questionable calls have been made, especially in regards to spotter and driver communication. But if you were to ask me, there was no communication on this one. And because if I'm Chris Wright's spotter, I'm just thinking, what is that boy doing? What in the world is that boy doing right now?
I don't know. There's some things that make you question. And again, I don't. Again, I've been pretty harsh on Chris Wright before. It's no secret that I've made my thoughts pretty clear. This just makes you wonder why. Like, what in the world? What is going through the mind to? First of all, he completely missed the breaking point. Like, you got to hit the brakes or you got to do something instead of aiming right for the rest of the field there. It's like a reverse Kevin LePage.
The only thing I could imagine going through your head at that point is either the Freebird guitar solo or the Meow Mix commercial song. Those are the only two things I could hear going through someone's mind during that.
I'll give you a third, okay? And props to NASCAR Chasm for putting this out there on Twitter. When Chris Wright comes around the bend and is headed for the pit lane, he's like, "Okay, good go, Leroy."
Yeah, that's a really good one for that.
That's a fair one, but I mean, and again, Chris Wright has had people put stickers on their cars saying that they might want to seek legal consultation.
Yeah, it's happened before. Just ask Alex Clubb how that felt.
Yeah, NASCAR made them remove that, but this was a dumb move. And again, we'd be making fun of any driver who would done this. This is not one of those situations where we're just picking on the driver because we have a vendetta. We'd be picking on Justin Allgaier if he did that, which, to be fair, Allgaier pretty much hit everything but the pace car tonight.
Yeah.
And we'll have to hope that it goes a little bit better for him throughout the rest of the course of the season and his remaining starts. It's not going to give you a hint as to whether or not he made the 500 because he did attempt to make it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, this race was what you expect out of an Xfinity Series race. I think that's safe to say. Hey, this was a race that you expect out of the Xfinity Series. These guys were not really making anything stupid. A lot of the incidents were more of an accordion effect where you had the one guy checking up, which leads to the next guy checking up, which leads to the next guy. And then the one guy gives that extra bump that not really his fault. He doesn't know that the guy 4 cars ahead of him is checking up. So, the accordion goes and we get spins. There wasn't really anything dumb in this race other than that. This was one of those traditional Xfinity races where you are a little bit annoyed with the finishing under yellow. That's always a bit of an annoyance, but this was an excellent race. And really, Jesse Love had to earn it because they were 2 Haas cars on the inside row on that green white checkered. Haas did everything right on that restart. Jesse Love did it better, Hal.
Yeah, Jesse Love got the job done in RCR fashion, the Xfinity RCR fashion that we've become accustomed to. He did everything right, and his blocking, first of all, the move he made off the restart to get down on the bottom row, I thought was very gutsy. It was very, very gutsy. I didn't think his spotter must have been on point right then because he was barely clear. I thought he was going to get turned. He found a way to keep it there, and by God, he drove the hell out of that car to the finish because the lines kept coming, and he had to keep adjusting. Who's he going to block? And at no point did he pull the "we're all going down together" block, which is what I feared. He kept it clean, which is so tough to do at Daytona because if you keep it clean, what happens is you get passed on the last lap and you feel bad at the end of the night. But that's unless disaster strikes for everybody else right at the white flag, which is how we ended up getting to the finish of the race.
Yeah, they crashed right at the finish, right at the start finish line as Jesse Love took the white flag. I will say, not as good reaction time as the duels on Thursday. But that's a story for later. But still, Jesse Love did what he had to do. And honestly, the way he was holding the lead and blocking both lanes while still maintaining it, it reminded me of something similar when Tyler Reddick was driving that same RCR number 2 at Talladega in 2019. How he held off the field, blocking all those lanes and managed to hold everybody off to take the win, especially on that last lap and how he was doing it. Jesse Love made it happen, and now he's a winner at Daytona. Good for him. And great run for the Haas factory team, too. Sam Mayer in second, Sheldon Creed third. Just trying to, I think I have the results pulled up here on my laptop here of the final results. Carson Kvapil in fourth. Impressive drive because he was involved in that lap 5 crash earlier where it pretty much tore the whole back bumper off the car. So they had to basically rebuild it from scratch. Slapped a bunch of bare bond and tape on it and sent him back out there. They get a fourth place finish out of there. Taylor Gray, solid run in the top 5. Although he almost pulled a Mark Martin coming to the finish line with the caution and checkered, but still managed to do it. Rest of the top 10, Harrison Burton, Jordan Anderson, solid run for him and his own team. Dean Thompson, good run for his first drive for Sam Hunt Racing, at least on a full-time basis. Jeremy Clements in 9th, and Patrick Emmerling rounds out the top 10. 3 rookies in the top 10 for this season opener.
I almost feel like with RCR, it's unless you're the mayor, unless you're Jeff Burton, the mayor, you got to be good at blocking at Daytona. I feel like there is something in the water at RCR that just makes these guys animals when it comes to being able to block, being able to control the race. Clint Boyer was good at it. Harvick was good at it. And you can name pretty much any single driver, Dylan, Kyle Busch even. They're great blockers when it comes to these Daytona races. They're great pushers as well. But great results for a lot of guys. Obviously, you mentioned Jordan Anderson. Jordan Anderson's car barely made the field for this race. It would have been tough considering the fact that we had an originally qualifying going on that got rained out prior to the start, prior to the completion of it. So unfortunately for guys like Greenfield and Yaley, they never really had a chance despite good laps. And that was the reason why Jordan Anderson was able to compete under its own owner car or for this race. But overall, Great run for him. Josh Bilicki in 14th was a good run. Cesar Baccarella. These are guys we don't normally talk about. Great runs for them. Great survival runs for them. And I'll give a little bit of love to Greg Van Alst because he was having a solid day prior to the ending of that race. He just got caught up in the wreck that took out pretty much everybody prior to the green-white checkered.
Yeah, there was a wreck with 2 to go in the scheduled distance that took out Connor Zilic when he got turned out of the pack. William Sawalich also collected. Parker Retzlaff. Christian Eckes also got a piece, but he was able to continue on. Eckes ended up finishing 12th, which is his Xfinity Series debut, driving for Colleague. Further down the list, some guys that just, we talked about them earlier. They got involved in those crashes or they had some other mechanical gremlin strike. But the one in particular, Austin Hill, finishing 33rd after leading almost half the race.
56 laps led by him, and Jesse Love had the other 30. Rest of the field wasn't even close. But the one thing that is going to help him, 2 playoff points and sweeping the stages. So it wasn't a horrendous day for Austin Hill in terms of the points and all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say Austin Hill, even though he finished in 33rd, points-wise, not a bad day at Daytona. If you're going to crash out, that's probably one of your best-case scenarios. Winning the first 2 stages will do that for you. Speaking of guys who had really good points days, Sheldon Creed in 3rd, 51 points because he finished 2nd in stage 1, 3rd in stage 2, and 3rd in the race overall. I will say Sheldon Creed probably got a couple enemies tonight too, because as we said, got involved in Nick Sanchez. I believe the 88's radio blamed Sheldon Creed by name after Zilic got wrecked out. And that took out Christian Eckes. So that's like 3 rookies he took out tonight. Big veteran move by Sheldon Creed. Get the rookies out of here. But it was a very entertaining end of the race, even though people are probably disappointed it ended under caution. There was no way they could have called that before he crossed the start finish line. If they did, I would have been like, you quite literally were so fast. No way are we going to do that even once this weekend.
Here's the thing. I have seen that done before. 2022
right?
truck race.
It was you would have had to have your hand on the button, literally right at the line.
Now, to be fair, at the start finish line is when I would have my hand on the button going, they're gonna wreck. They are going to wreck right here. I guarantee it. So there was a little bit of surprise for me because I thought it was kind of bang bang. That's the real shocking part. It's not like the reaction time was really off. It was a bang bang caution before after he crossed the start finish line. So I think we're also, if we wanted an overtime, I'm sure a lot of fans did. You're greedy. You had a really good race you just watched. You don't need more overtime.
Where are
you already had one. You don't need double overtime. And I think after the race, Jesse Love said it himself. I think he said overtime sucks. He said he hated it because he had probably his heart in his throat during the lead up to the green flag. He was not having a good time in that car, just thinking about how he was gonna have to block everybody. But what a great job.
Well, I will say, if you're leading the pack at a drafting track like that, of course you're gonna hate overtime when it starts because you don't want to go through it.
It's not good for the heart. And we've had the stat that's been going around besides the weather stat all weekend has been the last 7 of these 500 races have ended under caution or have had an overtime. So this is kind of a prelude to what we're going to see tomorrow. I don't think we're done with the overtimes. I don't think we're done with the green-white checkers unless this race does not go the full distance. We are going to go into overtime. If this race is here going halfway or it's going beyond 500.
I'll be pleasantly surprised if it doesn't. So that was the Xfinity Series race. Jesse Love gets it done. 2nd career win in the Xfinity Series and his 1st win at Daytona. Good.
Now we should clarify here. This is being recorded about an hour and a half-ish after the race. Okay, so unofficially, Jesse Love is the winner of this race.
There's a reason we're clarifying that right now.
Unofficial.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there because yeah. A lot of foreshadowing tonight. Before we get to the truck race, I know we don't talk much about ARCA just because there was the 1 year that we decided we were going to make picks for ARCA races, and then ended up turning into Ty Gibbs versus Corey Heim the whole season, and really no one else was even close to competing. But we did first. The thing is, ARCA got shown on Fox, the big Fox today, Fox Network. And they certainly put on one of the races of all time, is the best way to put it. Now, here's the thing. I know ARCA gets a pretty bad rep sometimes for being a crash fest. Although, here's the thing. When you really think about it and you look back at some of the races in ARCA history, this isn't anything new. ARCA races can be crapshoots, a lot of them. Like, I remember watching an old ARCA race from 1996 at Atlanta. Oh man, that race was one of the ultimate cases of just survive to the end. Try your best to get to the end. There were, I think, 5 or 6 big crashes throughout the race that left some drivers injured or just tore up a lot of cars in ways you wouldn't expect. So ARCA, just get to the end. That's the objective. And kudos to the guys who were running at the end, because it was not easy, especially early in the going. And even Fox Sports with Jamie Little, Phil Parsons, Trevor Bain, even they acknowledged this is not going well. There was a time where they had run, I think, not even 10 minutes of green flag time, or maybe even not even 5 minutes. And they had already run an hour under the yellow flag, because they had, like, my parents came to my house today and were helping me with stuff. And they saw that I had the ARCA race on the TV. They're like, how's it going? I told them they've had 5 big crashes and they're not even 50 laps in. And we had 3 big crashes before lap 19. Like, the big one happened at lap 5 because, what's his name? Cody Dennison, the Timcast guy, lost it out of the pack, hit the wall, came back down, collected a bunch of other drivers. And then Willie Mullins tried to get through, and let's just say he tried to go for a hole that was there while still going mostly race speed, and it didn't work. He ended up going right into another car. Then Amber Balkan spun, took a couple cars out, and collected Cletus McFarlane. However, Cletus was able to keep going. And then about a lap or 2 after the restart, Balkan cut a tire, collected McFarlane again, and this time totaled McFarlane's car. And then some other cars got involved. Poor Greg Bracken, who was driving one of the Young's Motorsports cars, he took 3 or 4 huge, just heavy hits on a wall or on a car within 10 seconds. That was the most brutal crash, I would argue, of the day.
He went to the hospital for that, for evaluation. He had to go to Halifax for that, at which, that's the local medical facility in the Daytona area. Unfortunately, I don't think we have an update on his condition. Hopefully he's fine. And our thoughts and prayers are with him for the time being. But this was let me put it to you this way. Before we talk about the winner, before we talk about anything else, let's throw out the numbers. 13 cars finished on the lead lap in this race, which is actually higher than a normal ARCA race. Let's get that out of the way. However, 22 cars, Hal, ended this race behind the wall. There was a girl, Tim Vaines, who was in the 31 car, who had mechanical issues at lap 2, came down, went to the garage, came back out 29 laps later, finished in the top 20. Tim Vaines finished in the top 20 after going to the garage at lap 3 for mechanical issues. 29 laps down.
He also probably saved a lot of money.
Oh, if you were one of the cars that got knocked out early, like Eric McCall, you were like, well, shoot, we've got like 15 cars out before lap 19. We could go back out there, or at least try to make minimum speed.
This was, this was peak ARCA. I hate to be mean to the series, but it's what it was. I think we can safely say that 22 cars behind the wall. That's impressive stats right there. There was a lot of the bad and the ugly of ARCA. I wouldn't really say much of the good happened today. Um, this is actually the race of survival. This was the race of survival. We talked about how guys survived in the Xfinity Series race to get in the top 10. To get to the last lap was a matter of survival here. And you get out of there and you probably look at your car and you go, a little bit of bumps and scrapes. I'm happy that we just made it because there are a lot of wrecked cars and unhappy owners today. Even then, some of the guys who finished the race were apparently, I don't know, unhappy is the word or being ridiculous was the word. This was some of the worst of ARCA on display. I hate to put it that way because it really does feel like we're bagging on something that gets bagged on every single week, every year. There's something about ARCA that gets just piled on. But this race really deserved it. This race and everything that happened during and after deserved to be bagged on.
Yeah, and let's bring up the after because they crossed the line. They finished the race after what felt like an eternity, and many people, many fans of motorsports watching at home, and even I myself was questioning, like some of the guys out here, some of the drivers out here. I mean, granted, it's a talented field, and I get that there's a lot of drivers here who maybe don't have as much experience driving a race car. This is, it's the first race of the year. This is a tough test for anybody. They got to learn somewhere. They got to start somewhere. I understand that. But also some of the standards of driving out there, it made me wonder what exactly, like what are the qualifying standards to be in ARCA?
Well, you had to do the test back in January, which all these guys did. And let's keep this in mind. And I do want to put this into perspective. There were about 47 entries for this race. Only 40 of them made it. And the reason why 7 of them didn't make it was not of their own doing. They did not qualify for this race because the field was set by owners' points.
Yeah, because qualifying got rained out.
Yeah. So they had and by the rules, they had to have a practice beforehand, which they did. They got their practice out of the way, but the field was not set by merit this year. It was set by the merits of last year. And you've got different guys in different places. Some of these guys have deserved their spot on the grid. I'm not going to complain about a guy like Williams Walich making the race or Jason White.
Yeah,
in the race. Those are guys who have been regulars and have deserved their spot and have earned points to get here.
Exactly. And granted, there's plenty talented drivers out there. Lawless Allen, Isabella Robusto. There's also Brayton Laster even made the field because of qualifying rained out, but still he's done a lot to get there.
Right. And even guys like Cletus McFarland, which we talk about him getting knocked out twice by a Balkan, but that first wreck he was in, that should have been it for him. Yeah, that should have been it. And he's survived the first big one too, because he was back there, did a fantastic job avoiding that. Great awareness to use the pit road to get out of the way. Second one, turn 4, and this is more foreshadowing. Turn 4 has been a nightmare for both trucks and ARCA all week. And that one corner right before pit road, that has been a hot commodity for drivers to hit throughout the course of the week. Yeah. I don't know how he did it, but Cletus McFarland was able to save that car. He was able to save that car, couldn't get it refired, went a lap down because of it, but he saved that car from hitting the inside wall and kept it out of the grass. That is, for a driver of his, experience, especially in these cars, that it was one heck of a save. That was a veteran move right there.
Yeah. I had a train of thought and then I lost it. How?
I think we were getting closer to the. Did we cover the AJ Moyer?
We were getting, yes.
Yeah. Let's get there. So they cross the line, they take the checkered flag, and then just for good measure, this happens after the race. I want you to watch here, right around here. So this is the front of the pack. I apologize for the video quality. This is as best as I could find. AJ Moyer just right rears Helio Castroneves and turns him straight in the wall.
And for the record, Castroneves was involved in 3 other incidents on the day, but
yeah, none of which were his fault, by the way.
No, none of those were his fault. He's had probably a rough week, but let's bring it back up, because as I think we need to show the audience once again what we're talking about here, or because it's like, okay, hey, guys spin out all the time coming into the checkered flag and all that. He gets into him, and then that's kind of, it's not a full right hook where you're going to junk a guy, but that's a borderline right hook. And at Daytona of all tracks, that's a big no-no.
This is not Talladega. The start finish line is not down there. there's no excuse for being that far down the front stretch and then continuing to race. Guys, it is the cool down lap. Why are we not cooling down? We are right hooking guys into the wall.
Well, the explanation that AJ Moyer, and that was the driver who turned Castroneves and put him in the wall, the explanation that AJ Moyer gave was that he had no radio communications.
I'm sorry, but then in that same call, thank his spotter first?
I think he did.
How do you thank your spotter without a radio?
So we got
probably maybe for everything leading up to the radio problems, at least in his mind.
So we've got 2 lines of thinking. It was, I didn't know that the white flag was going on, or the checkered flag had happened, and I was still racing competitively, and I didn't think that it was, the race was done, or the radio's not working. And in that case, I would love to hear what the ARCA officials have to think about that. Because we're at Daytona. Out of all the tracks, I can think of only one track that you would need that at radio communication more at. And that's Talladega.
I've heard ARCA brakes. I've never heard of ARCA radios before. This is a new phenomenon to me, and it still doesn't really explain anything to me, because I've heard now 2 explanations from drivers that were not explanations. One is my spotter had a miscommunication, and now I can't look out of my mirrors anymore. I can't look ahead. It's impossible for me. And my radio's off, so now everyone slowing up in front of me must be an idiot, and it's time to drive through them. What are we doing out here? First of all, I want to say this. This should be the biggest deterrent for any other series driver to come to NASCAR, is I got to compete with these ARCA guys who are doing stuff like this after the race. And this doesn't happen to guys like Helio Castroneves for the last 25 years of their lives. This is not a thing that happens on a cool-down lap. And suddenly you've gone from, I'm competing with the best of the best in IndyCar every week, well, not every 3 weeks it feels like, and I come here, and to race with the best of the best here, I've got to face guys who don't belong on the track sometimes. It feels backwards if I'm trying to come in and race in NASCAR. I'm almost wanting to say I'd rather have you go to the trucks to get that qualification out of the way instead of ARCA, because I wouldn't want to come back after that.
I mean, ARCA test, I think you got to do the ARCA test, but maybe the Xfinity series is another method.
There's got to be a better
Ginsburg had to
spot.
run it too.
There's got to be a better spot because I want if I want the best drivers coming over from another discipline, I want them to get an actual feel for driving with some of the best who aren't gonna straight up lose their minds and wreck them or have no radios apparently. I never heard that in the upper series. I've never heard it in ARCA before. This is crazy to me that I don't even know if I take the explanation for what it is just because it seems so off. It seems out of left field. Of all the things that lead to that, it's the lack of a radio. Do they not? Do we not put caution lights after the checkered flag so everybody knows to slow down?
Well, here's the deal, and this is the thing I also don't understand. If I'm not mistaken, Daytona, you have the flag stand, right? The flag stand is the flag stand at normal tracks, but it's the Daytona flag stand, not LED lit.
It is.
And when there's a caution, it's waving yellow. If it's a red, it's red. If it's a green flag, it's got the logo of the race. So would it not have the white flag being the white flag and the checkered flag being the checkered flag?
Well, I don't know. I need to go back and check if it has those particular features because right now I don't know.
And it's a question. It's a genuine question I'm asking, but I would have to imagine when they're coming to the checkered flag, they got the checkered flag out because it's the end of the race. There are visual signs for a driver to know when this race is over, or at least visual cues. Did the spotter not tell them, hey, we got this many laps to go before the radio cut out? And then you start doing the mental math in your head.
So I went back and looked at the finish of the ARCA race. When the checkered flag was waving, there was no checkered like LED.
Okay.
Just the race logo.
Okay, so I'll give him a benefit on the doubt on that. I will backtrack on that because I would think you would have a checkered flag going in that moment. But there is no reason for that to have happened under checkered flag and circumstances. That car was already probably not going to be ready for Talladega. That thing is junked. And that took up, I want to say a minimum, it took 120-mile-an-hour hit into that wall.
Had to. I mean,
it's close to a right rear hook as you can get.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, and the thing is, the guy was AJ Moyer. It seemed like he was chasing after Brendan Queen after the race. And a lot of people were wondering, well, like, is the 88, is he mad at, I mean, he dumped Elio and now he's chasing after Brendan Queen. What's going on? Well, I don't know. I mean, I know it's easy for us to be dubious about the whole, about the conversation of, oh, I didn't have a radio. And I know, Justin, you've got the metaphorical tinfoil hat with thanking the spotter right away, which I can understand being doubtful and being skeptical, but at the same time, I really do think that he lost radio. I think he was complimenting his spotter for what they had been doing before the radio went out.
Right.
And then he gets down to the end. He doesn't know what's going on because he's got his mind, like, I recall Dario Franchitti, the former IndyCar champion, recalling a similar situation with him at Kentucky in 2007, where he was so focused on trying to, like, they had an incident where he was running in the top 5, and then he comes in the pit lane, comes in too fast, takes out the commitment cone, and damages the front wing. So they have to take that off, put it back on, and he comes back out there, and he's trying to get every spot he can. He's angry and frustrated with himself for that mistake. And they get down to the end of the race. The checkered flag waves. Dario's not even paying any attention. He is focused on trying to get as many spots as he can. And he still thinks that the race is going on when everybody starts checking up in front of him. And then he does a backflip over Kosuke Matsura's car going into turn 1 after the checkered flag. And Yeah, I mean, Dario took responsibility for that. But I mean, I understand it's ARCA. It's easy to doubt some of the explanations, but I genuinely believe, with the team and the operation that AJ Moyer probably is running for, they may not. I feel like and again, this isn't an indictment on the team. I don't mean for it to be an indictment on the team, but I think it's just sometimes the quality of their resources isn't as good as some of the other teams.
And I'm going to clarify my point here, Eric, because I think you are misconstruing it a little bit. I'm saying it's either, Aaron, like, he didn't know, like, either or the radio was working and he did the right hook, which I genuinely do not believe any driver in their right mind would be doing at Daytona. I do not believe any driver, or whether they were involved in an incident or not, would be genuinely right hooking a guy at Daytona. I don't believe anybody's a psychopathic enough to do that. What I do believe, though, is the radio did go out. And if that's the case, that's where I start to have questions, right? Of, okay, if the radio's out, that's now a safety issue. That's now a problem that on a track like Daytona, on a track like Talladega, that's something where it is a genuine safety issue. It's the same reason why I have a genuine concern with the FIA instituting the censorship button over team communications. It's radio is not a tool for chit-chatting or making jokes with spotters. They could be used as that during races. We've seen that. But it's mainly used for driver and team communications. And there is no other place on the ARCA calendar that it's as important to have radio communication, especially with a spotter, than at Daytona and Talladega. That's what I'm saying. And could it have gone out in the last 16 laps? Yes, that's very much could have been the case where they could have they didn't have time to come down pit road and fix that. But I do genuinely believe ARCA needs to evaluate, and I think NASCAR will as well, evaluate whether or not having team communication at a track like Daytona or Talladega would require a team to come down and fix the pit road and fix that issue. I think that needs to be a rule in this circumstance to prevent something like that from happening.
I agree with that because it's not just in terms of what happened after the race. You're talking about you were competing at high rates of speed, always having to decide if you're clear before you change into the next lane. All of that needs a spotter to tell you you're clear. And I know there are guys who are probably they're not guys these days, actually. These days, there are not guys who are going around saying, yeah, well, I can judge it. I can judge it from inside my car if I'm clear without the help of a spotter. That is not a thing that I think happens anymore. I think with how reliant everyone is on spotters, that's not a skill guys really get. You are dependent on, am I clear on the outside? Am I clear on the inside? And when your spotter's wrong, you find out really quickly. And I think a guy would find out really quickly if he's wrong too. This is a big safety issue because we don't want guys to crash out and take everybody out with them and waste hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, with a huge wreck because they didn't have their radio. Their radio was broke. I think you do got to get them down pit road, but also, how do you communicate with them to come down pit road other than black flagging them? And how are they going to know you're black flagging them and not the guy behind him? Because he's got no radio now. It's kind of impossible to communicate with them at that point. And that's what's going to be a real problem if we got radios going out is how is a guy going to know if he's being penalized, if he needs to go down pit road again because he sped out of pit road? It becomes a big issue. And that's why you definitely need the radio fixed because you have to communicate penalties to them.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a radio, I mean, if there's no way for the spotter to communicate with you or for the crew chief or anything, like if you can't hear the crew at all, that's not a good sign.
No, and that's what I think I was getting at, it's like, if that's like, if you genuinely right hook the guy, that's a problem in itself. If you don't have a radio, I almost think that's worse, is not having the radio. Because again, that shows me that for however long you had, you stayed on the racetrack and you were making decisions on your own. And granted, we've had guys make decisions on their own in these races. Spotters are not telling them down or up. It's just physically impossible to do. Oh, and have every single move. Drivers got to take it into their own hands at some point, like we said with Chris Wright. But I do believe that is a genuine safety issue at Daytona and Talladega. You can get away with not having a spotter at a track like Kansas, or if we go to Elko, or we go to Illinois State Fairgrounds. Spotter not necessarily needed there, or not really necessarily needed at your local dirt track or short track. You could kind of judge it by yourself there. But at Daytona and Talladega, where the speeds are so high and the risk is so much more, I mean, we've got a guy in the hospital tonight. You need to have the radio. And I think NASCAR needs and ARCA need to take a good hard look at that. How you enforce that, I don't know. It may be an honor code thing, which is a scary thing in itself. And NASCAR may need to go back and look at communications of guys who are involved in wrecks or incident or guys who start wrecks. I'm sure they already do in their Tuesday meetings, but it's something that you're going to need to look at. And again, I don't think AJ is at fault for that in terms of radio communication. I don't think he broke it on its own. But at the same time, I'm also a proponent of, he kind of did right hook a guy, and I really don't think he should be racing until after the Talladega race.
I'm inclined to agree with that, just because you can't have him out there if there's going to be, say, another radio issue happens at Talladega. You can't, on that type of track especially, you can't have that happen. I need them to really investigate what caused it, because this team needs that help. They need the help because, again, this is a new ARCA team. They just started last year. AJ Moyer is one of the co-owners of that team. So you could safely say that he is, of all people, does not want to lose radio communications in there.
No.
He does not want to shortcut on any of that. I don't think that's what happened. But they need to find out what happened so that this does not happen again. For a team like that, I'm sure that they're having to budget themselves pretty strictly. They need to know so that they can go into a Talladega or a Daytona and never have this happen again.
And for the record, by the way, it's not like I'm asking for like a 4 or 5 race suspension here. It's Phoenix in a couple weeks and Talladega. I think it may be, an appeals uphold type deal where it gets down to one race. Although NASCAR has said in the past, now with its penalty rule, you either keep it or you either keep it or hold it up higher, or if you were found guilty of it. But I think that this team should not be running at Talladega if they're going to show up at all.
I mean, they got Phoenix coming up next. That's their next race that ARCA is going to run. After that, it's Talladega. A pretty lengthy gap in between those races. But, a right hook's still a right hook.
Yeah.
Whether it's intentional or not. And I know Moyer probably didn't mean to do it. He probably was probably completely unaware that the race was over. But, at the end of the day, you still turned a guy after the checkered flag and put him head on in the wall. So consequences are probably going to be coming. I just don't know what they are.
And again, I want to believe I want to believe it. I do believe it's a radio issue, but that's something at the end of the day that they're going to have to figure out. But this was not a good day for ARCA. This was not a good day for ARCA, but I will say it's a great day for the NASCAR lawyers, because they can point out that this was not competition in terms of what NASCAR's quality was putting out there. If you're a NASCAR lawyer, you're having a field day with this one.
Yeah. Notice we really haven't talked about the winner yet.
No.
Which is a shame, because Brendan Queen did an outstanding job. Brendan Queen is now a Daytona winner. The late model short tracker from the Carolinas, just trying to work his way up the ladder. got on our radar last season with a fourth place run on debut in the Truck Series at North Wilkesboro. And then started a couple other races at some of the bigger tracks, Kansas, some other places. But this season, he's going full time in ARCA. And he's got a good team to do it with, Pinnacle Racing Group. They've won a championship before with Sheldon Creed a while. Or no, I think Creed was with a different team. Well, anyway, Brendan Queen got the victory today over William Sawalich at Daytona. Outstanding run for Queen and a great way to start his ARCA career, getting his first career win at Daytona.
I was going to say they had Taylor Gray as a driver. They've had Riley Herbst as a driver. So there's a long list. He mentioned replacing Connor Zilisch in the ARCA series, which is, not an easy feat, but Connor Zilisch did not necessarily enjoy the Daytona experience. This was a great race by him. Really, shout out to the top 13 guys. They pretty much, in that final stretch, they decided, all right, we're going to slow this pace down. We're going to take care of our cars. And if we get to the end and all heck breaks loose, but we're going to, at least save up our stuff. So credit to those guys where credit is due. I'm sure a lot of other cars were willing to do that. And I'll be honest, guys, the title might have been won today. For the amount of guys who were full-time or gals that were full-time in the ARCA Menard series, almost the majority of them wrecked out of this race. And you got Butterbean, who's running full-time this year. That's a huge start to him and an excellent way to start off your ARCA campaign and going for a title.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking at the team itself. Last year, they had Connor Zilisch get 5 wins and Connor Mozak get 1 win and 2 more second-place finishes. The team's clearly got cars good enough that you can win a title in them. And Brendan Queen, we know I can't say we knew unless you're really in the know about Butterbean, but if it's any doubt now, he should be your title favorite because he is just that good and his car is just that good. And I also don't know how many guys are running full time. He might run away with this by like 500 points. I don't know.
Well, not really, because if you start in ARCA, you're at least guaranteed like 30 points because they still award the 43-1 system.
Well, I got to think here. ARCA, let me think. I know Brendan Queen is going to be full-time. I want to say Lawless Allen is also going to be full-time.
He is.
And I mean, that'll be good for Allen. And it's unfortunate that he got taken out in that crash because in one of the 5 crashes early on. But because, Allen was running inside he was leading the early portion of the race and doing really well. Lawless Allen's full-time. Isabella Robusto also for Venerini Motorsports. She's full-time.
Corey Day, I think, is full-time as well this year for the 77.
Actually, no. It just he's running 3 races.
Oh, that's
for
right.
Spire. Trying to see who else is full-time because I know there was one. Well, maybe not full-time, but there was another driver, Jake Finch for Venturini Motorsports. He's running, I think, mostly the super speedways, but he's done pretty well there before. So, just keeping that in mind. Also, you have LeVar Scott for Rev Racing, Jason Kitzmiller for CR7. He finished 3rd in the race. A good run for him. Thad Moffitt is back to full-time in ARCA. Unfortunately, got taken out in the big one on lap 5.
I think Brayton, if I'm not mistaken as well, Brayton Laster is running this, and that team was not going to make it if this thing was qualified, but he was able to make the field on that. They'll get some honor points on him. And if I'm not mistaken, the 06 actually ended up making it pretty far in this race.
Well, he was in the 0 for this one race.
Yeah, he finished 24th. He got crashed out on lap 24, which made it further than a lot of other guys.
Yeah. And even then, that was a case of he crashed all by himself, but I think that was more like something broke on the car going into turn 1. It was either a tire or an axle that broke.
And
that
that
just sent him straight in the wall.
And that was the same thing that happened to Amber Balkan on that second incident. The first wreck, she kind of caught that turn 4 or bump that's been plaguing everybody all throughout the week. It seems like that old Daytona surface is starting to peak out a little bit, but the second one, no control over the car, took her out of the race. Unfortunately, took out a lot of other cars, including Cletus, who probably would have been the free lucky dog driver on that incident. But again, this is one of those races where it's like, this happened, we survived it. Never put another one of these Daytona races on Fox ever again, please. I don't think we need. But ARCA was #1 trending on Twitter. It breached containment today.
Well, the thing is, like, I feel bad too for ARCA, because this was a good opportunity for them to try and put on a good show in front of a national audience. You know, Thad Moffat, in an interview with Eric Estep earlier this week, was talking about there's a lot of hype around ARCA with more cars on the entry list, the first race being shown on the big Fox. You got Kat Dexter actually paying attention to some of the racing out there. So, you know, this was a big day for ARCA, and at least they wanted to put out a good show. Obviously no one wants to put out a bad show, a wreck fest, and unfortunately that's what it ended up being.
And I will say, and unfortunately, this is also one of those situations where the broadcast also did not help this. It did not help this. And, you know, I don't think fans who tuned in at noon were tuning in to the CW in terms of casuals. I know the hardcore fans made the switch over to CW. Night and day. Just night and day between them. And I think the biggest thing is the booths. Yes, the sound wasn't the best as on the CW. Yes, the camera quality could have been a little bit better. Again, these are nitpicks. These are bugs that you're going to figure out. But the CW blew them out of the water. I'm sorry.
Booth chemistry is there with the CW.
I mean, when you had Jamie Mack and Adam Alexander working, 5 years together at NASCAR Race Hub on a full-time basis, I think maybe 3 before it got shut down. They were in those production meetings. They were spending time with each other prior to the start of those shows. Those guys have chemistry. It's something that you really can't replicate in like a test screening, no matter how hard you try. Although NBC is good, or Fox is going to try that with IndyCar, although that did sound like it went really well with Townsend Bell and all that. Very excited for Wednesday, because we've got a couple of potential leaks and concept art for what IndyCar on Fox is going to be able to provide. But the chemistry was just not there. And it very much was a monotone call. And, you know, Jamie Little is a fantastic pit reporter. She's a fantastic commentator, or whenever she gets it on the in front of the green screen. But unfortunately, calling races is just not at the thing she is good at.
I will say with the CW, I was noticing I got to catch the tail end of the Xfinity race today, and all I could think was they flow very well together. They have great chemistry, and a big part in this is the contrast to Fox's coverage right now. They aren't trying to be silly. They're trying to give you the analysis that you are looking for in that moment, and it's not like Jamie McMurray lacks any charisma, or that Parker Kligerman doesn't have fun in there. It's that they're having fun just telling you how it is, instead of trying to have fun and make a joke. I think you know what I'm getting at is that Clint Boyer, it's a continuation of what Darrell Waltrip was great at, which is having fun in the booth. But I think we've evolved a little bit past needing someone to just have fun in the booth. I really think that there's a place to have fun, and it's when there's a loose wheel and it's time to sing and things like that.
Or a driver's asleep in the car, like Jesse Love was. He got the last that we forget about that. That must have paid off for him, because he was sleeping.
He re-energized.
Yeah. Hey, it goes to show the power of a nap, but like they were having fun. They were like the camaraderie was there. Like you could tell these guys were close. And like the only concern I had was Parker Kligerman getting added to the equation. You could tell by the qualifying session in the morning when they were padding for time, these guys were at it. They were on point. And not only that, but there was like actual like relevance to what they were talking about as well. You could tell they were, I mean, Jamie and Adam were having fun. Parker Kligerman, on the other hand, was probably a little bit annoyed at them. And there's a reason why he might have been a little bit annoyed.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Real quick though, I want to share. We talked a little bit about Cletus McFarland. Already, man has probably a case for interview of the year. I'll just play a little bit of it if y'all don't mind. Just gotta go through all this and share the sound and whatnot and blah blah blah. But this was Cletus McFarland / Garrett Mitchell being interviewed after 2 crashes, which unfortunately took him out. First of all, tall boy. First thing I noticed. Sorry. But anyway, Cletus, take it away.
Field, I know this isn't how you wanted it to come to a close. What was your experience like as a whole?
Well, I was having the best day of my life. Ripping around Daytona like a bald eagle. I was flat out, avoided a wreck, which was awesome. I thought I was the best driver to ever exist in that moment. And it's probably because my sleeves were cut off that I was able to pull off that maneuver, come down pit road. Then someone slammed into my rear left quarter, spun me out, lived through that, got some fresh tires, went back out there. I'm hot dogging into 1 and 2, and the car lost it in front of me, and I saw it, didn't have enough brakes to get slowed down before it, and tried to go around it, misread it, zigged instead of zagged when I should have zagged, and I zigged, and bam, blew the front end right off my hot rod.
That was awesome. That was the highlight of the race.
That's like
that was the second highlight of the race.
Put that on a t-shirt. That's gonna make a great story.
And I will say, like, Cletus is an entertaining guy for sure. I watched this video. He's actually on probation, by the way, from NASCAR, because he snuck a camera in during the Daytona testing when he wasn't allowed to, which, fair enough on NASCAR's part, and fair enough to Cletus. It's for his part on all that. But they had the in-car camera. It was like 50,000 people watching that. So obviously he was very popular when it came to that. But I hope he runs Talladega. I hope he runs more ARCA races in general. I want to see him on a track that's not a super speedway, because he was looking fast. He was one of the faster guys in the practice sessions and all that. That thing was a hot rod. He was right about that. But man, oh man. And that was the second best promo of the day. The better one was Butterbean, because right now that Waffle House in Daytona is probably popping. Chocolate milkshakes and all for everybody.
Shout out Waffle House at Daytona Beach or wherever they're at. That's
the place we should have stopped when in Daytona on a Monday.
That reminds me. You want to know something? We need to go back to Daytona. Honestly, like this is not like just for shiggles either. I'm throwing it out there. We need to get back to Daytona.
We need to get some media passes. We need to up our subscriber game first off.
Yeah. But all in good time. Boys trip. Go to Daytona. Gonna be fun one day. But
maybe we can avoid the rain we've had the last couple of years.
You brought up Parker Kligerman being could have been annoyed. Yeah, there may have been a reason for that. The truck race Friday night at Daytona. Honestly, a good show. I must admit. I was nervous, especially in those first few laps, because I remembered what happened last year when I was watching those first few laps and saw the trucks dancing around and moving and swaying and bobbing and weaving and just all sorts of just movement sideways and stuff. And I remembered texting in the group chat last year watching the race. They're not going to make them they're going to wad them up in the first 10 laps. It's the way they're moving around. They got to lap 6 and the big one happened. I remembered last night watching those first couple of laps and saying, big one in the first 10 laps incoming. It's gonna happen. It actually didn't happen, but Caden Honeycutt did get spin out from the lead on lap 3 or 4 and ended up hitting the wall. He was done for the night. And really, turn 4 was the trouble spot because we saw Caden Honeycutt crash there. We saw Tony Breidinger crash there. We saw Clay Greenfield crash there all by himself. There was also, I'm trying to remember, because there was another big wreck that happened. It feels like so long ago, but there was a big wreck that happened, collected a few trucks. But down to the end, you had Ben Rhodes, Chandler Smith. They had led a bunch of laps. Smith led the most laps on the night at 34. But you had Parker Kligerman, who was hanging around at the front all night, right around that front end. And he got to the lead down the backstretch on the last lap. The Thor Sport guys were making a charge, and then everybody starts checking up, and they're trying to keep it straight, but they just can't. Ben Rhodes gets spun off to the inside, and then they're still trying to go, and they get through turns 3 and 4, and Lane Riggs starts spinning, and then the whole field starts crashing behind him. They throw the yellow. Parker Kligerman's in front. He crosses the line first. He wins at Daytona. Everyone's excited. Parker is stoked. It's a great win for Kligerman and for Henderson Motorsports, a small team that usually doesn't get in the spotlight like this, and they just got the biggest win of their career. Everyone's happy. Everyone's good. It's a great story. Parker Kligerman and Henderson, they win at Daytona, and it helps, especially after Parker got screwed by NASCAR after what happened at the Charlotte Roval.
Well,
and then a couple hours later, we find out that Parker Kligerman got disqualified because the rear of the truck was too low.
Not just one end of the rear, both ends of the rear were too low.
And yeah. 2 races and 2 ways that Parker Kligerman gets screwed out of a win. Now this one it was disqualification, and Henderson Motorsports is appealing it. The likelihood that it gets overturned, I don't know. I would think it's not very high, but still. Kligerman loses the win as a result of the disqualification, and Corey Heim ends up inheriting the win after crossing the line second.
You might as well get that part out of the way, you know. If Parker Kligerman's not going to win, you might as well get the Corey Heim playoff clincher out of the win. We all knew it was coming anyway. That's a real shame for Parker Kligerman. It was like the best case scenario to me of the surprise winner, a guy who is a veteran part-time. He's not going to affect the playoff race by any means because he can't make them. So it felt like the best case.
Well,
I also thought that they would probably give him a full-time schedule after he won the race and then let him compete for the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. It probably would have conflicted with his CW obligations, though. That is a heartbreaker because, again, he was this close last year and got screwed. And this time, maybe beat and bang into the wall a little bit. He wouldn't even gotten penalized, but here he is. Real shame. This truck race was a lot better than I think we expected from the truck series, which almost feels like an indictment sometimes, but this time it was like, okay, chaos. This is the chaos I want out of Daytona in the trucks. I don't want to see everyone get crazy out here. Good for Corey Heim. I think we're going to cover a lot of the guys who we didn't expect to do well. I must now start eating crow and do it all season long because Gio Ruggiero looked like the real deal out there. And I'm going to have to look at my playoff predictions and scream at myself in the mirror because that kid's good.
Ruggiero had a sorry, Hal, I don't mean to cut you off, but he had an outstanding night. Got up front late in the going, led 11 laps, and runner-up finish on debut.
Tricon
started 34th.
Yeah, Tricon 1-2 finish. Ty Majeski, defending champ in 3rd, Grant Enfinger 4th. Justin Haley driving the Spire 7 inside the top 5. Rest of the top 10, Chandler Smith, Daniel Hemrick, Jason White.
Yes.
For the Rayom brothers. Jason White, the Canadian, gets an 8th place finish. William Sawalich 9th. And in 10th, Malcolm Frankie Muniz, a top 10. That's 2 Rayom brothers trucks in the top 10.
That was the silver lining at Parker Kligerman getting DQ'd. And I was getting prepared, like, when that happened, it's like, come on, Parker, run the full-time season. You can run. Like, the only issue would be Lime Rock Park, and that would be the only issue with the CW obligation. You can do it. You can run on it. You can try it, because more than likely you just use the NASCAR studios for the race in Portland, because it's a road course, and you really can't see on the road course, especially in Portland with all the trees. But man, I felt so bad, and just like my heart sank when I saw that, because it's just like, you've got to be kidding me, especially after the Roval. Oh, the emotions of winning at Daytona. He has been such a good driver, one of the most cursed drivers in terms of getting a win out there. And this happens now on top of everything. And the worst part is he had to get up at like 6 a.m. for the production meeting for CW. That's the worst thing. And you gotta look at your new coworkers and walk into that room and still, be prepared to go to war after experiencing the biggest heartbreak in the last 12 hours. Like, the roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I mean, you've just had the biggest win of your life stripped away from you after something that really wasn't even your own fault. And by the way, Landon Castle, the former NASCAR driver, gave a kind of hint on what to do. If you win the race, tear your car up immediately afterward so they can't really get you for the height stuff.
You just run into the wall and do the donuts like that. And because nobody until tonight was really wanting to mess up the grass. Well, I guess the ARCA race kind of messed it up, but that's besides the point.
That was kind of naturally happening.
Yeah, that was natural, but like, burn that thing down. You won on that Daytona. And again, I feel bad. Corey Heim obviously gets a win. I mean, what more can we say about Corey Heim? Really? He's like, oh, we've now added plate tracks on top of short tracks, intermediates, road courses. It's half miles, 2 miles. Oh, see a name. It's like, oh, we've now added the super speedways. Great. That's the last thing we needed to add here. We've got the Xfinity Gauntlet for Corey Heim. 1-2 finish, I guess, now for Tricon. That's a fantastic result for them. Had a couple of sacrifices in the race, but those are worth it when you can get a 1-2. But really, this was an excellent truck series race. I really thought it's like, okay, then the Xfinity series is going to falter. Now, the Xfinity series kept on par with their normal product. This was a really good truck race. It was clean. Credit to these guys. I thought for sure it was going to turn into a wreck fest after that lap 84 crash. They kept it clean for another 12 or 11 laps after that. Obviously, last lap at Daytona, you're going to wreck. You go 16 laps without wrecking, you're going to wreck on the last lap. You're going for the win. And it is the way in the rule of Daytona. It is Cup, Xfinity, trucks. It is the law of the jungle at that point. But, a lot of results where you're just going, man, that's a really bad start for guys who I think are going to be on the bubble, like Kane Honeycutt and Tyler Ankrum. And at the same time, you also look at some of the results for some of the guys you don't normally see. How about another name? It wasn't in the top 10, but how about this? 16th place, 73-year-old Norm Benning. One of the most consistent guys out there. He's still doing this on a full-time basis, which is why you're able to keep him out there.
Well, I mean, he runs only a few races nowadays.
Only a few, but still 16th. And keep in mind, also, one more point on Ruggiero. The reason why he was qualified 34th was because he had a flat tire during his qualifying run. And he had major car problems during that run in qualifying.
The thing about Norm Benning, he finished 16th. He also finished on the lead lap.
He did.
He's the oldest lead lap finisher to finish a race in at least the NASCAR Truck Series, maybe across all 3 NASCAR National Touring Series.
I believe so, because normally Morgan Shepherd would finish at least a lap or two down in the Xfinity races that he did. But so congrats to Norton Benning. Also, Johnny Sauter with a decent 17th place finish. Good to see him back. But guys, at the moment, barring appeal, Malcolm is in the playoffs.
Also want to point out Timmy Hill in 11th.
Yes, good run for him. And they were a team that had to race their way into the show. So that was a very good result for him. But, we'll see what the consequences of this are going to be. Obviously, Tuesday is the appeal day. So we'll see what it rules. And I think, gentlemen, and we got to wait until Wednesday's show to figure out the rest of this truck race. But overall, final thoughts, Hal, on a pretty decent race for the trucks.
Well, it's like you said, pretty decent. You were talking about how maybe because trucks did pretty well that Xfinity would fall. Or I would safely say, because of the track we're at, they will not falter out in quality-wise unless the drivers themselves decide to make it a bad race. It's going to be entertaining, and this race was no different than, I think, the Xfinity race. Xfinity we expect higher, but the Truck Series did a very good job of not making let's say a mockery. They did a good job of keeping it a legit race you can look back at and kind of be like, well, I wish it didn't end under caution. I wish the guy who crossed the line first won the race, but other than that, it was a good race. A lot of guys have a lot they can bank on and feel good about. I'm still surprised Frankie Muniz at 10th place. That was shocking to look up and see that at the end of the top 10. Malcolm in the middle was in the upper middle. Thank you very much. I will also say for a guy like Caden Honeycutt, that was such an unfortunate start to the race because we expect a lot out of him. And I think there was a part of him that had that expectation of, if I do well today, I can just put to bed any idea of playoff bubbles. And I think that might have led to a little bit too much on that first couple laps.
Tyler Ankrum and Rajah Karuf as well.
Yeah.
And also, unfortunately to point this out, Connor Mozak, they had trouble seemingly right out of the gate. I mean, they didn't even start the race because they had transmission problems.
Yeah.
And they were behind the wall trying to fix those for several laps. They ended up getting out there and getting some points, but they finished 32nd, 21 laps down.
I was going
to the year.
Not exactly an uncommon problem, because that was also a problem in the duels as well, where you got a couple of guys like Chase Elliott, and I think it was Ryan Preece who had transmission issues getting it going. Luckily, they were both able to get it back going for the duels and were able to do their normal thing. But it was not an uncommon issue this week at Daytona for guys to have transmission problems or get slow out of the gate, because that was an issue in 3 of the 5 races at minimum that have taken place thus far.
Yep. We've talked about Xfinity, ARCA, and trucks. Let's get to the duels. 2 duels from Daytona on Thursday night. First duel was seemingly a race, it felt like a race of survival, at least in the beginning. You had a couple crashes early that took out a lot of contenders, including some of the open contenders, open entries. Chandler Smith, driving for Garage 66, actually got up to the front and was the lead open entry for a good bit. Then he tried to clear himself in front of Justin Haley and was not clear. Ended up going head on in the outside wall. A hard hit, took Haley with him, and also collected Elio Castroneves in the process and broke Castroneves' toe link. And, well, Elio and Chandler Smith were out of the race on the spot. For Chandler Smith, that was it for his Daytona 500 bid. It was over at that point. Elio, well, at least they got the open exemption provisional, so he'll be falling back on that. Spoiler alert for the Daytona 500. But in the end, it came down to really Justin Allgaier and JJ Yaley. And Yaley was up there, gave Allgaier a good fight. At some points was even the first car ahead to make it in. But at the end, he just had no help. Didn't have any help to stay where he was. Allgaier got some help from Josh Berry, former junior motorsports driver, behind him, and some other guys. In the end, Bubba Wallace ended up winning the duel. Justin Allgaier was the first open entry car to cross the line. Allgaier makes it into the Daytona 500. For Junior Motorsports, Dale Jr., big night for them. Junior, I think he's been downplaying, and he even admitted this as such to the media. He's been downplaying this whole his excitement about getting a Cup Series entry to field it in the 500. But when they talked to him after Justin Allgaier made the show in that Junior Motorsports number 40, you could tell Junebug was hopping up and down. He was excited.
He's got the racing bug. He's got the bug now. We talk about the drivers getting the bug. Junior's got the bug. Everybody start speculating randomly here. Or Junior, I think, is really wanting a Cup team now. It feeding. And you could tell how much that meant to them. They had to race their way into this. They really couldn't rely on and trust Martin Truex Jr. or to get them in. They actually finished ahead of Martin Truex Jr., which would have gotten them in, but they're going to start at the Daytona 500. They'll start 19th tomorrow. It meant so much to that team. And Justin Allgaier tried to do things in a Cup car that normally work in the Xfinity car. Was able to hold it on the outside. They were finally ready to go on that lane. Unfortunately, JJ Elliott just no help, nothing you can really do. Kind of got hung out to dry. Car was competitive at least. I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up to Atlanta. I don't expect Junior Motorsports to be showing up there, but at the end of the day, Justin Allgaier is in the Daytona 500, and Junior Motorsports might be getting that at charter sooner rather than later.
Well, it's like you said, you could kind of see it in Dale Jr.'s face after the race on the interview. He's got the itch, and we all have the itch to see Junior get that charter and run a team in the Cup Series. We all want it. You got to give the people what they want, and luckily the people did get what they wanted because Justin Allgaier, I think everybody was, their hearts were set on him, their brains were set on him getting in because it seemed like the equipment should be good enough to get in. Justin Allgaier is definitely more than a capable enough driver. But with the duels, you knew it came down to sometimes a little bit of dumb luck. If you lose the draft at any point in those last couple of laps, you were ruined. And JJ Yaley, I am going to give a lot of credit to his drive because he was in the mix. There were points where I was looking up and going, JJ Yaley might pull off the impossible right here, but it just wasn't to be. Gave the best shot possible. That team has nothing to be ashamed about, and unfortunately, that's not really going to get through to anybody because nobody feels good in that team right now. But Allgaier makes it. Junior's happy, which means everyone watching is happy because everybody loves Junior. Bubba Wallace is a happy guy because he gets to get the taste of victory to start, which I do think is important mentally. You now know this year you can get to victory lane even if it's just a duel. That's important. Ty Dillon, also huge race for him because it proves you don't just have the qualifying speed, you were able to go out, race, and still get a third place finish. Very impressive runs, not quite what we expected from some guys, but in the end, Justin Allgaier was who we picked as the clean sweep to make it into the Daytona 500. Not quite how we thought he'd make it in. We thought it'd be speed, but this is arguably better because now he doesn't have to start 39th.
Well, not only that, but let's talk about the other two guys who did miss from, or the one guy who did miss from this, Chandler Smith. That car was fast, and we saw it in the Wednesday morning session where they caught at the draft. Chandler Smith was fast and just made a huge mistake and Spire said clear and was too late to react to it was Chandler Smith because the bottom was clear. It just wasn't clear at the moment he made that move. Unfortunately, ruined his day, ruined Helio Castroneves' day. And, I was thinking at that moment, it's like, oh, Justin Allgaier's got this on lock because I really don't think the 44 is going to be able to keep up. No, credit to the 44. They were able to keep up. It just was not their day. And just no help and the rules of Daytona in that situation. But Bubba Wallace, I don't think we could say how how big enough this win and is for them, because we went into this race. We had our show on Wednesday night. We all said it. This race was going to be Chevy dominated. We didn't give the Toyotas a chance at all to win this race because we all thought they were in the minority. Chase Briscoe's going to park it, which he did although he parked it for basically getting his grill smashed in. We all thought there was no way that Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace was going to come out of this with a win. Maybe a top 5, but not a win. Those two worked this race to perfection. They worked this race to perfection. They got out front. They worked together perfectly. Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick were in sync. When Bubba had to go down to defend the bottom, he was able to do so. On the restarts, they were flawless. They were able to keep ahead of the Chevy A teams. They were on point. And as much as Bubba Wallace deservedly gets this victory, and I am giving him a ton of praise for it, Tyler Reddick is as equal in getting him that victory. Those two work together perfectly. I wish Tyler Reddick it's a better starting spot on the 500 grid. And because of that, unfortunately, he ended up finishing the race fifth, I believe. So he'll start outside the top 10 at the start of this race. But that's a great indication for the Toyotas on Sunday. Although they've got some more cars, they can do it like they have done it in the past couple of years and how they have approached these races. They can mix it up with the Chevys and Fords, and they can be that thorn in everybody's side and work with no matter everybody else, so long as they've got two of their own towards the front.
Yeah, Toyota looked really strong with Bubba Wallace getting the win in Duel 1. Duel 2, I guess we can lead into that as well. Eric Jones looked really good too. He put himself in position to have the lead late and then looked like he was going to make it. And if we're being honest here, Eric Jones won Duel 2. Sure, NASCAR will say that Austin Cindric won, and technically he did, but that's only because NASCAR threw a caution about 100 feet from the start-finish line when they really didn't need to. Yeah.
All right, so let's break down the race prior to getting into this debate, because I know we're going to come back to it. Great race, fuel strategy race, fuel saving race. We know how the duels work, right? We know how the duels work. If Duel 1 is calm, Duel 2 is madness. If Duel 2 is Duel 1 is madness, Duel 2 will be calm, at least until the last lap. Well, we got Duel 1 as a bit of chaos. Duel 2 was calm until the last lap. And this race was fuel saving. You had a ton of different strategies. You saw the Fords have to break apart their pack, which kind of bit them at the end. And there, just because of the way they got split up. It was a very good race. And you also had, these open guys, some of the stronger performances, I think. And Yaley did well, but at the three guys, Anthony Alfredo did very well despite not making the race. I thought that 62 team did a really good job. The 78 team, it's BJ McLeod at a super speedway. He does well. He's going to do well. And I will say he did a masterful job, because we already mentioned the caution. He did a masterful job of keeping his car clean. Masterful. I know it sucks that he's not going to be able to race, but by him slowing down in that and avoiding the wreck, he's going to be able to run that car at Atlanta. He's going to be able to run that car at Talladega, so long as he survives Atlanta. That's a huge, even though he probably knew he couldn't make the 500 if he tried to slam on in there, he saves a race car and you can get purse elsewhere. So very good job for BJ McLeod there. Got to give him his flowers. But Corey LaJoie ran like he was a charter car last night and more than earned his spot on the grid. He is going to be starting, gentlemen, P12 in this Daytona 500. Very, very good run for him. Didn't really have any help from his teammate. He had his help from the Ford camp, but that car looked like it belonged on the grid. It does belong in the grid, and Corey LaJoie is going to be in the Daytona 500. How?
Yeah, I had kind of detailed how it could happen, and it really was dependent on Cody Ware helping him, and well, that wasn't quite what happened, but Corey LaJoie did find his way in there, and again, Corey LaJoie is a very talented driver in the situation he's in, not out of a lack of talent. It is circumstances more than anything that have made him have to drive in a non-chartered ride for the Daytona 500. I will say what it really came down to was Anthony Alfredo had to make a move because he was the biggest threat to Corey LaJoie. Anthony Alfredo had to make a move at the end of the race, and he did it a lap early, if you ask me. If he makes that move on the last lap, I think he gets some friends following him to try to help themselves out. But he did it on the second to last lap and became a parachute. He went on the outside lane and dropped back like a rock, and there was no chance after that. Corey LaJoie had his spot if he just kept it clean from there on out, and Corey LaJoie got the job done. Hats off to him. Hats off to the finish that we had because, of course, it had to end in chaos and end with a caution, and we had to look back at when did the light turn on. And Austin Cindric won, and the wheel is right again, ladies and gentlemen. I spun the wheel and I said, no, not Austin Cindric. He would never try to race for the win in the duel, and he won. Of course he won, and my second pick didn't win. So my bad wheel. I'm sorry.
Never doubt the wheel at this
Shame
point.
on me. They won me a title.
That
It
wheel,
did.
it did win you a title single-handedly.
What am I doing?
Even though wheels don't have hands, but still. What was I gonna say? I had a thought. I remember I was watching the end of the second duel, and I saw them come down to the line. I saw them start to crash, and I saw that caution light go up before they got to the line, and thought, oh no, this is gonna play a part, won't it? And then you have Eric Jones thinking he won it because he was the first to the line.
By 4/1000th of a second, no less.
He's there. It would have been a great finish either way. I mean, it would have been an excellent finish if they had just let him race back to the line and then throw the caution. But no. Instead, you have Eric Jones parked at the start-finish line, climbing out, thinking he won, waiting, and then the news sinking in that no, you actually didn't win. Sorry, get back in your car and drive back. And you have Austin Cindric parked on pit lane. He's good. He's psyched. He's happy that he just had a good run. He's like, I mean, yeah, we had a good night. It was all good. And then Jamie Little tells Austin Cindric he won. And Cindric's kind of looking around like, what? Like looking around for any hidden cameras thinking like, am I being pranked here or something? But no, Austin, you won. Oh, okay. So I guess what? Just pick up the checkered flag over there. Yeah, sure. Just walks across the grass and goes and picks it up. And very anticlimactic way to learn, hey, you actually won. But yeah, that's what happened. And I saw a lot of fans get riled up on social media for it. And I get it. I understand. And I also saw some fans say, well, I'm not so annoyed by this, but it is another inconsistency from NASCAR officiating. And in the back of my mind, I can't help but think, I mean, sure, I shouldn't be annoyed by it, but I am. I am very much annoyed by it because this was a totally unnecessary move by NASCAR. I mean, at this rate, I get that there's some crashes where you have to throw the yellow. I understand that. But if you're coming to the checkered flag, if you are like entering the tri-oval and a wreck starts happening behind you, take your hand off the button because drivers, they're headed for the checkered. If they see a wreck, they're going to react how they react. It's not like they're going to go aiming for the crash. They'll do whatever is natural to them to try and avoid it, get around it, and take the checkered flag. Wait for the leaders to cross the line and then throw the yellow.
Right. So, this was the thing that annoyed me because, if we did that back in 2007, Mark Martin is a Daytona 500 champion.
Yes.
That is one of the most iconic NASCAR finishes. I hated that race for so many years, but I can't even deny it's one of the greatest NASCAR races of all time. That race applies the same rules. Mark Martin's a Daytona 500 champion. We don't have that photo finish with Harvick and Martin. We do it back in 1976. Richard Petty is a champion of the Daytona 500 8 times. And we do this so many different races. The result's still the same. Look, I think the good example is tonight, right? Xfinity Series is Jesse Love takes the check or white flag. Cars are crashing behind them. You have to throw the caution, right? You don't like it. That has to happen. Cars wrecking in turn 1 and 2. That needs to be a caution. There's two, like these cars are not going to slow down in time. You can't have them racing back to the white flag. You need to get safety crews out there to address those involved in turns 1 and 2. Spinner on the backstretch, depends on if he hits the inside wall or not. Usually you let them race. 3 and 4, it better be a serious wreck before I consider it. But entering the tri-oval, hand off the button. If they are in the tri-oval, let them race to the line. You don't need to be having this caution thing where you have the light on and we have to go back to where the light is. Now, you're racing to the end, and the excuse they give is like, oh, we want drivers to slow down. I'm sorry, last I recall, NASCAR doesn't have a kill switch in the cars to all of a sudden make them go slower. It's not like a NASCAR heat game where the caution comes out and all the cars just slow down automatically on their own. No, that ain't how this works. This works by these guys naturally reacting to it. And name me one driver, Hal. Name me one driver in the tri-oval of Daytona tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon or whenever this race gets finished, maybe even on Monday. Name me one driver that is slowing down because they see a caution light in the tri-oval on the final lap of the Daytona 500.
There isn't one. There's not a driver who's going to do that. That's just not going to happen. They throw that caution out. That's cute and all, but that has never, ever, ever stopped anyone from going way too fast. Because also unnatural is for the cars to break from 195 down to whatever you were trying to get them to. That is not going to happen. They will hurt themselves doing that. This caution was something. It really was. I was sitting there. I saw the caution light go on. I noticed they've added a caution light little graphic on there. Make sure you know when to get angry when they throw it at a weird time. That was a weird one, and I didn't think it was going to come down to it. That was the most awkward post-race I've seen in a long time, and entirely preventable too. As you said, the be-all, end-all comparison is 2007 Daytona 500. Did we throw a caution whenever they started crashing? No. Did we throw one when it became a big one? No. Did we throw one when Clint Boyer went across the start-finish line on his roof, on fire? No.
We did not. Throw one when Brian Newman was in the fence.
No, we didn't throw these cautions in situations where, yeah, you probably should. You probably could throw one right there. It has to be some sort of weird mentality thing, and I don't think they send a memo because I think they just have it inherently ingrained. We treat duels differently than we treat the 500, I guess. I don't like it, but I see it. I can understand it. I think that you should just treat it like every race, personally, but at least see the mindset behind this. I think that this race should have been Eric Jones to win. He should have won this race. I was going to be mad about Austin Cindric finishing second because, to be honest, I checked out. I thought he did win. I checked out, turned it off, and went, well, Eric Jones is going to still start fourth. I'm not wrong. He will. But I can't believe that they ended up going back and giving it to Austin Cindric because, all in all, outside of the stage point and the point you get for the duel, I thought it's such a meaningless thing to change. And if it comes down to that 1 point later on, wow, are we going to come back to this? Because that's going to be insane to think about.
Well, not only that, but also now Austin and Cindric has a playoff point. Austin Cindric did not need to advance his starting spot on Sunday. he's already on the outside road of the Daytona 500. And he did not need to race this hard. All right, so if he finished second, no big deal. I'm still starting second and in the Daytona 500. But the playoff point is now in play. And for Austin Cindric, who, some of us have it on our playoff grids this year, that Austin Cindric will be in the playoffs or will be a bubble guy. 10 points is a big deal. Usually Eric Jones, I'm going to spoil it. None of us have Eric Jones all that high on our predictions. None of us have Eric Jones really going in there and really making the playoffs on speed. That's not how this is going to work. So the fact that now Austin Cindric has a playoff point and Bubba Wallace has a playoff point, might I add. Those are your two leaders in the standings to Facebook's chagrin. That's a big deal. Two bubble guys have 10 points to start off the year. That is a massive, massive statement for both of those teams. And credit where credit is due, because both of these drivers needed to come out and make statements. Eric Jones did too, with all the personnel changes behind him. All three of our winners from Thursday, and I'll include Eric Jones in that, all three of them needed to make statements on Thursday night. They got their statements.
Yeah, they did well. Although I will say, what concerns me about the ending of the second dual race on Thursday, sure, it's just the dual race, but what if that officiating, that type of decision, what if that decides who wins the Daytona 500?
Monkey's paw curls type decision. It has come into the back of my mind and as well. But again, they threw it out for safety reasons. They threw it out to try to slow the drivers down. That's not happening on Sunday. And I think every single guy in the garage knows that. I don't think we need to make a rule for common sense, but like some people have been pointing out here, but there is a situation where I can see where, we have a Brad Keselowski situation back in 2021, where Michael McDowell won the 500, where they threw the caution after that.
Yeah.
We can have a situation where they don't throw the caution and there's a major wreck in 3 and 4. And now we're coming back here on Monday saying, okay, why didn't they throw the caution, or why was the safety crews so far behind? And unfortunately, I do have some realistic fears, just because this is the 500. And in terms of driver safety, you always have to have that in mind. You could have a monkey's paw curl situation. I'm not denying that, but I think common sense of the final 100 meters of the Daytona 500 should be green if they're wrecking behind. I think there's some common sense there, or where the caution should and should not be thrown.
Oh, but you're saying those two words that I just fear so much: common sense. Sometimes the officiating just doesn't have common sense. I feel like for the 500, I want to say not historically, but I've complained less about when they throw the yellow to decide the race than I have in general. I feel like I haven't been complaining about that in terms of officiating. Our thoughts coming out of the 500 year in and year out have luckily not been focused on officiating, which I think is a good sign that they seem to, I wouldn't say tighten up, because that's certainly not what they do. They seem to have better discretion about when to do that. I maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I feel like this race, in front of the most viewers you're going to get, the last thing they want to have everybody talking about, and I'm going to say this in terms of context this year, especially in sports, the last thing they want you to end up talking about is officiating. Because we're all tired of talking about officiating, I think. After about a 5-month season of just hearing about it every Sunday, we want our Sundays to be free for once, just once, because I know it's too much to ask all year. One Sunday where we talk about how great the race was, who the winner was, all the cool things that happened, and that's it. And I think that NASCAR has done a good job of providing that in the last bunch of years, and I hope this year's no different. I share the fear, because we did just see it. It's not like this is an unfounded thing to worry about. It just happened. I mean, it was on Thursday.
I get it, but at the same time, look at the last 14 weeks of last season.
Yeah. That's where my words common sense scare me.
I mean, since the Olympic break, we've had the Austin Dillon situation, we've had the Blaney situation, we've had a tire situation, we've had a flat tire situation, we've had Joey Logano situations, we've had the wall ride situation, we had the manipulation situation, we've had situation after situation after situation after situation where for 14 weeks straight, it felt like we were coming in here and talking about ref car is, I guess, what we're going to dub it. If it's rec puck or ref F ball in other sports, I guess we could call it ref car or for NASCAR officiating. We're 3 races in to the season, and we're already talking about the officiating again, coming off the NFL season where we are talking about the officiating almost every single week. And also still in the middle of SEC basketball situations where the SEC has come under fire for their officiating all throughout the course of the year. The South has not had good officiating this year, is what I'm saying.
All I'm getting out of this is we should start a drinking game with how many times you say situation.
I mean, if you want to apply it further, the NBA allowed the Dallas Mavericks to trade their generational talent into the LA Lakers.
All right, remember that.
I guess we can throw that out to the pile. I know it's not officials who do that, but once again, the NBA did reject the trade at one point.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know how we even got here.
I was about to start discussing the merits of that and then realize this is not an NBA show because I was about to get on the differences, but I digress. We're all hoping for the Daytona 500 to not have the same problems this sport's been plagued with for a little bit now. All sports have been plagued with for a little bit now. We just want a week free of it. The biggest race weekend until the Indy 500. It would be nice if we just had if we're going to have a controversy, let it not be officiating, please.
Yeah.
Well,
if anything, let's have it be about cars going half speed and saving fuel in packs.
Yes.
You know that's what's going to happen.
We know that's going to happen. We know, we're going to get out of the way. And gentlemen, I think we need to start diving into the 500 talk because.
Should we go 500 first or the playoff picks?
Let's go ahead and do the 500 and let's roll into the 500 and then we'll roll into playoff picks because we can and kind of save our picks for the end of the show type deal.
Okay, we're already here. But I guess let's go ahead and do that. So gotta pull up what I wrote here for the starting grid. There's a few things to note about the 500. One of which is that there's first, the Grand Marshal for the race is going to be the current Captain America, Anthony Mackie. Interesting decision there. Mackie will be giving the command to start the engines. At least I would assume that's going to be the case. What else is there? There's going to be a lot of security there because evidently President Trump is going to be in attendance. So there's that as well. But aside from that, one more thing. They did move up the start time because there is rain in the forecast. So they moved it up by an hour. And it was scheduled to be at 1:30, at least Central Time, 1:30 Central. Now they moved it up to around 12:30. Rain is expected in the late afternoon and early evening in Daytona Beach. So they moved it up an hour, and now that's going to make things interesting for the race. But
I just hope and pray we don't get in our Charlotte situation like we did last year with the TV window. I really hope so because the weather doesn't look great for the afternoon. It does clear up though in the nighttime. And once 8 o'clock hits, we are clear, air and green and for the rest of the night. I think actually according to AccuWeather, the rain is supposed to stop around 7 o'clock if we do get any rain. Again, you got to, with NASCAR weather, to be a forecast and meteorologist in NASCAR, take the AccuWeather precipitation chance and double it. That's your weather forecast.
Yeah, it's Florida too. So
yes,
very unpredictable.
But it does look like clear skies after 7 o'clock. So if we do start the race and we do get halfway, I do want to see this race finish in the day or at the night. I do think NASCAR can wait this out. I do not want to see another mystified situation like we did at the 600.
Yeah, I really do. Now you're pointing out all these things, and now I'm scared. The common sense things, like right then, common sense would have said, let Kyle Larson get in the car and see what he does. But yeah, I really don't want to see anything like that. I'm glad they're moving it up, and I want this to be like, a precedent, NASCAR. You can move race times up, Keep doing this.
Don't be afraid.
We've been asking for years.
Okay. Well, anyway, while we're here talking about the 500, let's go through the starting grid. So I'll start from the back of the starting grid and we'll work our way forward. So starting 41st, shotgun on the field is a 4-time Indy 500 winner, Helio Castroneves, driving the Project 91 entry for Trackhouse Racing. Helio used NASCAR's new open exemption provisional to get into the field. On the outside of row 20 is 2-time 500 winner and 7-time Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson, now the principal owner at Legacy Motor Club. This could be Johnson's final 500. To his inside is 2017 Series champ Martin Truex Jr., now retired from full-time competition. He's racing in a one-off entry for Truck Series powerhouse Tricon Garage. Row 19 on the outside is Alex Bowman, the runner-up in last year's Daytona 500. And on the inside is Zane Smith, a 2-time Truck Series winner at Daytona, reuniting with Front Row Motorsports in his third 500 start. Mexican driver Daniel Suarez starts his 9th 500 from the outside of row 18. And next to him is fellow Chevy driver Justin Haley, winner of the July race here in 2019, driving for Spire Motorsports. Not sure how far we want to go, but I've got the whole list just listed out here. Let's see, row 17. On the outside of row 17 is Brad Keselowski, 2012 Series champion, still looking for his first 500 win in his 16th try. On the inside, at the opposite end of the experience spectrum, we find Carson Hocevar, last year's Cup Series Rookie of the Year and a Daytona 500 sophomore, trying to improve on his last place finish in last year's 500. In row 16, Las Vegas driver Noah Gragson starts on the outside in his new ride at Front Row Motorsports in the number 4 Ford Mustang, with the 2023 Daytona 500 winner Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the newly named Hayek Motorsports number 47 Chevy starting alongside.
And I think this is where we can go ahead and start breaking down the field since we've already named 11 drivers here. Really, again, Martin Truex Jr., Jimmie Johnson, they had to do they ran better than where they're going to be starting in the duels, but they made it on speed because of Allgaier and Corey LaJoie finishing higher than them. So that's where they'll be starting. Both of them hope they do well. Obviously, part-time rides for both of them at the moment. Johnson looks like he's in his final 2 starts to get to that even number, or in his career at 750, I believe. Suarez, Haley, both of them need to get off to a good start this year. Keselowski, big playoff expectations for him. I'm going to try to keep up with that. Hocevar, potential dark horse. Both of these guys, I would not be surprised if they're hosting up Carl J trophies. We know how good these guys can be at the restrictor plates, despite Hocevar racking out last year. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Noah Gragson. This could be the winner could be in this back group, Hal, and I would not be surprised at all. You could also have Alex Bowman and Daniel Suarez back there, and Zane Smith, who I would say all of those guys are Justin Haley, Zane Smith, and Daniel Suarez. I think those are the three guys who are going to be a little bit on the hot seat this year to get off to good starts.
I got really, really good news for all these guys back here, and it is that in all reality, the duels are awesome and they can reward you with a point, but no, they don't matter, actually. You start wherever you are on the field, it doesn't matter. It's the Daytona 500. You could be up at the front in like 10 laps. You could be straight parachuting to the back in the matter of 10 seconds. It really doesn't matter. There's going to be ebbs and flows throughout the race. Take it as it goes. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the name I'm looking at, 31st, because where did he start when he won the Daytona 500? 31st in 2023. He's won from this exact position. That should be a good thing to think about for everybody back here. If he can do it, you can. Justin Haley, you're just as good of a super speedway driver. This is your wheelhouse. You should be a guy who should be not fearing starting in 35th. Only guy I would say that I look at and kind of have that little bit of a side eye going, this isn't good for you, is Daniel Suarez, but that's because he could be starting in like 8th, and I would think that's not good for him because he doesn't do well at super speedways historically. But again, history doesn't really matter here either. You just need to get lucky once at Daytona and your name lives on forever. All these guys got a good shot. I think we're all interested to see how Elio does because he's the big story of it all. No points, no purse. That's not why he's really here anyway. This is a legacy race, and I want to see how he does in it.
Well, and also with Elio, he is in a car that is still his primary, but that thing was wrecked to shreds. Trackhouse only brought 2 backups. They had to replace that entire car because of Suarez and SVG needing to go to the backup. So that's a car that had to go out in final practice today and run. It's been a rough week for him. And unfortunately for Helio, a lot of incidents that were not his fault and a lot of blaming for things out of his control, like losing the toe link on the car when trying to reach the apron.
Yeah, just unfortunate for Elio. Sorry, I got a cat in my lap. Dexter making another cameo appearance tonight. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see if any of these guys, if anything, I think Keselowski can work his way up through the field. Those Fords have been really fast. Just didn't work out well during his dual race when he got taken out in the late crash. Something to watch for sure. Let's go through the next 5 rows. In row 15, welcome back Cole Custer to the Cup Series, driving the new Haas factory team entry after winning an Xfinity Series championship in his 2 years away from Cup competition. To his inside is Josh Berry, moving over to the Wood Brothers team. Berry looked particularly fast, both in pole qualifying and his dual race on Thursday night. On the outside of row 14, Cody Ware making a full-time return to the Cup Series, driving the number 51 for his father, Rick Ware. And next to him is Ryan Preece in his new ride, driving a 3rd full-time entry for RFK Racing in the number 60 Ford Mustang. In row 13, we find New Zealander Shane Van Gisbergen, a 4-time supercar champ in Australia. This year, he's a Cup Series rookie, driving a new 3rd entry for Trackhouse. On the inside is Michael McDowell, winner of the 500 in 2021, making his debut for Spire Motorsports in the number 71 Chevrolet. Row 12 is where you'll find Riley Herbst in another new full-time car, this one for 2311 Racing, in a bid for Rookie of the Year, the 35 Toyota, with another Monster Energy sponsored car next to him in Ty Gibbs, making his 3rd 500 start for his grandfather, Joe Gibbs. In row 11, 2021 Cup champion Kyle Larson starts his 11th 500 on the outside of row 11 in the Hendrick Motorsports number 5. Next to him is another Kyle Busch in the RCR number 8. Busch has been a popular pick by fans to win this race in his 20th attempt. It took one former RCR driver 20 years of trying and 20 years of frustration before they finally won the 500. That driver was Dale Earnhardt. Does history repeat itself this weekend?
Gonna be tough for RCR, but again, There's something in the water at RCR that makes these guys incredible blockers and incredible pushers. And Kyle Busch is no different than that. They almost won it back in 2023. Going to be very interesting. A lot of guys looking to make names this year. Cody Ware, I think, is looking to redeem his reputation. And Cole Custer at the Cup level is too. Josh Berry, after his SHR stint. Same thing with Riley Herbst. A lot of guys in this group kind of have bad raps and bad reputations here, but this is the perfect place to get it done. I look at a guy like Ryan Preece, and I can see him being a 500 champion. I can see McDowell being another or two-time winner at this race. We know how good McDowell is, no matter what equipment he's at. He's always a threat here at Daytona. You can't count him out. You've got a ton of guys, but of course, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, two guys who have never hoisted Earl J. a trophy. This is, I feel like, one of Kyle's last best chances. And for Kyle Larson, it's the last crown jewel in both of these guys is arsenal that they're missing. This is it. They both have starter 500s. They both have Coca-Cola 600s. They both have Indianapolis Brickyard 400s. And they have Cup championships as well. Larson only with one and Kyle with F2. The one thing missing is that at Daytona 500 trophy. If it's going to come, it's going to come at row 11. Now, any of these rows, I think row 11 has to be your favorite among the five.
Yes, I agree with that to a point. My only issue is I'm looking at Michael McDowell in row 13, and Michael McDowell's got his history, and he's got numbers. He's going to have a lot going his way. It's going to be interesting to see how Shane Van Gisbergen runs, because in Xfinity, he found a way to survive at super speedways, which I was very impressed with. That's something that a lot of drivers struggle with. So I'm interested to see how he does. But all eyes, even with Riley Herbst and Ty Gibbs, two young guns and Monster Energy cars, that's going to be really annoying for a second. Behind the two Kyles, all eyes are on row 11, because Kyle Larson, we know he is pound for pound the best driver in the world, it feels like. It's a question between him and Max, but Max in that last half kind of faltered. Kyle Larson struggles on super speedways. Can he overcome that and go and win the Daytona 500? A lot of people are going to be rooting for that. And it's weird to say, a lot of people are rooting for Kyle Busch to win after all his years as the big enemy out there. Kyle Busch has kind of fell into the Jimmy Johnson, he hasn't won in so long, I just want to see him win again type of thing. Kyle Busch is kind of the sentimental favorite. 20 years, he's done this, and you don't think it can go beyond 20 if it's going to happen. If it goes beyond 20, then it's just not going to happen, I think, is the mindset. So for Kyle Busch, this has got to be the year. I think everyone is rooting for that, and everyone is also probably just rooting for him to make the playoffs, win at some point this year, because we lost a streak. I'm going to be biased and say it's not my pick. The wheel will decide that for me, but Kyle Busch is my sentimental favorite pick here.
But is Kyle Busch on the wheel?
Kyle Busch is on the wheel. This is Daytona. Let's get it straight. There are 41 numbers on the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Busch he's been on a lot of favorites lists regarding predictions to win. In fact, I read somewhere that there were two drivers who were the betting odds favorites to win. Kyle Busch was one of them. The other driver we'll talk about shortly. But row 11 is definitely going to be one to watch. If I had to pick a couple of dark horses, keeping my eyes on Ryan Preece and Josh Berry.
Yeah.
Those Fords, they looked really fast in race quality trim, which, again, the duels technically aren't they're not a points paying race, but they looked really good out there.
They're not a full points paying race. They do award their top 10 points, but the last team that did win at Daytona, Wood Brothers, number 100.
Yeah.
101 could be Josh Berry on Sunday. We'll find out.
It'll be something to keep track of for sure. Now, to the top half of the field we go. On the outside of row 10 is Christopher Bell, the Oklahoma native, making his 6th 500 start for Joe Gibbs Racing. To his inside is last year's Xfinity Series champion Justin Allgaier, making his first 500 start in 10 years, driving an open entry for two-time 500 winner and NASCAR Hall of Famer Dale Earnhardt Jr. In row 9, we find John Hunter Nemechek making his third 500 start in the Legacy Motor Club number 42 Toyota, with 2020 Cup champion and the runner-up of the 500 in 2021, Chase Elliott, next to him in the Hendrick Motorsports number 9. On the outside of row 8 is Ryan Blaney, a former Cup Series champion and two-time 500 runner-up, making his 11th start in the Great American Race for Roger Penske. Next to him, you'll find the 2018 winner of the 500, Austin Dillon, driving the iconic Richard Childress number 3. Todd Gilliland starts on the outside of row 7, moving to the flagship number 34 entry for Front Row Motorsports in his 4th 500 start. To his inside is AJ Allmendinger, making a return to full-time Cup competition in the Kaulig Racing number 16 after spending last year in the Xfinity Series. In row 6, we find Corey LaJoie, the highest starter of the open entries in the new part-time number 01 Ford Mustang for Rick Ware Racing. And on the inside is Tyler Reddick, last year's regular season champion, the California racer in his 7th 500 in the 45 Toyota for 2311 Racing.
I don't know where to begin with these guys. I'm going to start with, while I say everyone wants Kyle Busch to win and a lot of people want Kyle Larson to win, the real favorite in terms of the popularity contest is Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see Chase Elliott. All his fans want to see him win the Daytona 500. And the Hendricks, they always qualified well, we said, and this year was the exception. In qualifying itself, only Kyle Larson made it to the second round. In the duels, well, we can look up a little bit on that entry list, and there's one guy up there, but duels didn't really go their way, and that's fine. Again, it is the 500. You're just going to be going up and down the field all day long anyway. But Chase Elliott is going to be the favorite of the Hendricks of the entire field. The crowd is going to be hoping and praying to see him win. If he wrecks, there will be boos for whoever caused it, I'm sure. Christopher Bell, Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier, I think, again, there are a lot of guys who I think have the crowd behind him. He is definitely going to be one of them because of the junior motorsports connection there. And I'm interested to see how they do in general, because while he has the itch, if things don't go well at the 500, that can make the itch go away and kind of go, we can wait to become a full-time Cup team. If Justin Allgaier has a really good day, then Dale Jr. is going to be sitting in the booth for those races when it's on Amazon going, I really want to get back in the owner's box. I want to be owning one of these cars on the field. Austin Dillon is he's a dark horse. He is very good at this track. He will do anything and everything to win. If you are in front of him, Austin Dillon will put you in the wall to win this race. Ask Eric Almirola. He's done it before, and he'll do it again. I think he's the most dangerous guy on the track in terms of what he'll do to win, and that's both a negative and a really big positive. Dinger, Kaulig is good at this track. Historically, it's been tough for them recently, but I think that AJ Allmendinger put himself in a good position. Corey LaJoie is the underdog to end all underdogs because he's Rick Ware Racing. He's not chartered. The other driver, any of the open entries are the underdog to win, but he is the ultimate underdog to me. That's why he's starting 12th, because he knows how to flourish in these conditions. I think our favorites, really, in terms of your super speedway guys, they didn't care about qualifying, and that's why it seems like we've ran through a lot of them. And I almost feel like, again, I can't pick because the wheel does it for me. I feel like your winner has already been announced in here in terms of, am I picking a super speedway guy? they've already been named.
I mean, there are so many guys in here that you can look at. Ryan Blaney in particular is the standout to me. Just a plate racing master at Talladega. It seems like always a threat at the super speedways. Austin Dillon, how many wins has he had at these super speedway racetracks? Obviously, Justin Allgaier is a sentimental favorite. And obviously, Chase Elliott would be a favorite among the fans. Christopher Bell, underrated as all heck at these super speedways. We talk about how good he is elsewhere. He is quietly very, and I mean very good. I would not be shocked if he were to win in this Daytona 500. He may or may not be my pick to win this race. We'll have to see in the prediction segment and where I decide to go with. John Hunter Nemechek needs a good start to his season. It's got to start here. Todd Gilliland taking over that flagship. We've seen how well that 34 can do. I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there. Corey LaJoie is an ultimate underdog, and Tyler Reddick kind of feels like he's in the same boat as like a guy like Larson, where it's like we don't really talk about him on the super speedways, but he was the assister on Thursday night. He did really well. He won that race at Talladega last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the winner on Sunday either. I do feel like if we had to pick any of the four groups of rows we're talking about in these clusters, I feel like it's coming from 5 to 10 this year. That's just the gut feeling. It's going to come from 5 to 10, or it's going to come from that at 3 through 5 row cluster that we're about to get.
Well, let's see here. I mean, Christopher Bell is going to be a popular pick, I think. He's done a well, maybe not a popular pick, but it'd be a solid pick. He does very well. Chase Elliott, fans are going to love it if he gets it done. I mentioned Kyle Busch was one of the betting favorites to win. The other guy who's up there is Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney is a very good super speedway racer.
He is.
Won multiple times at Daytona and Talladega. You also have Austin Dillon next to him. Dillon, obviously, he'll do whatever it takes to win. And also, Hal, thank you for bringing up Eric Almirola. I'm still not over that. Todd Gilliland, I think he's a dark horse. He knows how to get around these super speedway races, these drafting tracks. Corey LaJoie, he is definitely one of the better drafting track racers on the Cup schedule, despite the fact that nowadays Corey he's not full-time anymore. This is just a part-time effort for him, but he knows how to get it done at tracks like Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta. He knows how to get a good finish. And now there's no expectations for this car, so really it makes it even better for Corey. He tends to perform better when there are no expectations.
He's got the purse already. I know he mortgaged his kids' college fund, and to get this race through, but he made the 500. He's at least getting a $250,000 purse out of this. So everything after that is gravy on the ice for it, essentially. So got nothing to lose. That's a dangerous driver, and there's a good amount of Fords he can work with, especially in the top 10 to 20 range.
Hal, I don't know if you have anything to
add. I think he's trying to figure out why I said ice there.
Yeah, I'll be honest. There was that. I am confused on that a little bit. I also just looked up, and I think I know what you mean.
For reference, the United States versus Canada game is going on, and the United States just scored the empty netter to probably secure it.
Yeah, this game is a minute left for me, probably over for you. Yeah, USA wins.
21 seconds, but
we need a fight. We need another one.
I think we got our quota in the first minute. They got all of them out of the way.
Relax.
3 in the first minute.
We do not need to cause an international incident with Canada.
We already have 3 fights in 1 minute.
Yeah, that probably
that's qualifies. Just a friendly.
Yeah, just wait till the gold medal game or whatever we're going to call it, the winner of this tournament game.
I was going to say Canada's got to win their next game, though. I think U.S. is already locked into that game now.
Yes, we are. Back to subject matters. Where were we?
Back to this, the important stuff. Not that hockey isn't important, but there's this as well, the Daytona 500. Now let's go through the top 10 starters now. Moving into the top 10. Starting 10th is the defending Cup Series champion Joey Logano, looking for his second Daytona 500 win after he won this race 10 years ago. Next to Logano is Florida native Ross Chastain, who came close to winning last year's 500, but came up short after a last lap crash. On the outside of row 4 is Denny Hamlin, a 3-time Daytona 500 winner, looking to add win number 4 in his 20th start in the Great American Race. To Hamlin's inside is Ty Dillon, making his return to full-time Cup Series driving in the Kaulig number 10. Dillon was very impressive in his Daytona dual qualifying race on Thursday night. Starting 6th is Chris Buescher, the pride of Prosper, Texas, population of 30,000. Insert there for Rick Allen. Racing his 10th 500 for RFK Racing in the number 17 Ford Mustang. On the inside of row 3 is the defending winner of the Daytona 500, William Byron, the highest starter of the Chevy entries, driving for Hendrick Motorsports. Starting 4th is Eric Jones in the number 43 Toyota for Legacy Motor Club. Jones nearly won his dual race on Thursday night had it not been for an unnecessary caution. Next to him is fellow Toyota driver Bubba Wallace, the winner of the first dual race on Thursday, making his 8th 500 start for Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, and 2311 Racing. On the outside of the front row is Austin Cindric, the 2022 Daytona 500 winner, who also technically won the second dual race Thursday night, driving for the captain, Roger Penske. And taking out the Busch Light Pole Award for the 67th running of the Daytona 500, Chase Briscoe, winning Toyota's first pole in the Great American Race, making his debut for the illustrious Joe Gibbs Racing.
Oh boy. Joey Logano 10th. Now, Joey Logano didn't have the Web Club this year. That's why he's not starting on the pole, and he's still dangerous. He's still very dangerous because Penske's also good at winning championships, are pretty good at being up front and winning the Daytona 500. Joey's done it before. Austin Cindric, of course, won with the help of Ryan Blaney, who I still don't know if I would have done the same thing Ryan Blaney did. I don't know. I'm selfish. But this is one of the guys who I consider the dark horse that no one thinks about because he's not known as a super speedway driver. Ross Chastain, good job. Ross Chastain, another guy I don't think of as a guy who's a favorite at Daytona or Talladega. He's definitely had the mindset in the past, but does he have it this year? I haven't seen it in a long time, and that's my fear. He's got it in him somewhere to win a race like this, but I haven't seen it. Denny Hamlin, I can bag on this guy for not winning championships all night long, but this guy is a proven Daytona 500 threat year in and year out. He has to be one of your favorites if you're considering experience, history, and ability. He's got it all. Ty Dillon doesn't have quite all that, but I will say something runs in those Dillon boys at Daytona and super speedways where they run really well. Ty Dillon has had a weekend I don't think he's ever had before. That to me, also, let's get something straight here. Maybe Ty Dillon and Kaulig in terms of super speedways is a match made in heaven. Because Kaulig loves super speedways. This is the trophy they hunt the most because it's the only one they can really go out and get. Ty Dillon's giving him a good chance at it. I don't know if this is the year for Ty Dillon, but stranger things have happened. Chris Buescher, I'm surprised you said 10th Daytona 500, and I went, how in the world has Chris Buescher been here for 10 years? Great shot, RFK. I'm not sure if I've got them as a team that performs very well at super speedways, but Brad Keselowski brings a pedigree. I hope, for Chris Buescher's sake, it can be passed on to him through the team. William Byron, I hate to put it this way for William Byron. He would win this race, and everyone would probably go, "Oh yeah, William Byron won the race." It's not a slight on him. He would be the guy who wins it, and you go, "That is a little underwhelming." Not for William Byron, it wouldn't be. Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace, these guys performed so well in the duels, and Eric Jones did win the second one as far as I'm concerned. And they proved that the Toyotas are a force to be reckoned with at the super speedways, which is not something we've ever said up to this point. That and Chase Briscoe, these three guys are going to be pushing Toyota to the front, and they can do what Penske used to do all the time, which is stay up front and be able to pit together and stay up front all race long and put yourselves in the best position to win. They need to be on the same page as Penske has been all those years. That's why Austin Cindric and Joey Logano have been able to do what they've done in the past. And Austin Cindric, as I said, he needs his Penske to join him up front. They're not that far. They can get there. It's going to be a battle between Toyota and Penske to start it off, and it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Oh boy, this front and 5 rows. You have to consider at least one of these guys is going to be in the mix. Joey Logano, he's a champion of this race before. Or they worked really well. The Penske did on Thursday night. You had Ross Chastain. How many times has Ross Chastain been in a situation where he's made the move? We have seen him make the move at least 3 of the last 5 Daytona 500s. He hasn't worked yet, but he's made the move. It's going to work at one time for him. It might be this year. It might not be. Ross Chastain getting in the victory lane would be huge this early for Trackhouse. Denny Hamlin. What can we say about Denny Hamlin? He's won 3 of the last Daytona 500s in this decade. Always a favorite for this race. Ty Dillon, best weeks he's ever had, really making Coley look competitive. That car does look like it's going to get wrecked in the 500. It survives a dual type of car, but not the 500. And so I'm a little hesitant on him. And then your first 3 rows, monster picks there. Busher, I think, can win one of these. Plate a master is in his name. Byron's a champion. Could he go back to back? Jones, I think he's going to need some help from non-2311 or JGR guys. I don't think they're going to get there or quite yet, but I think he's going to be there towards the end. And then Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, and Chase Briscoe. Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, 1-2 the year we were down there for the Daytona 500, and Chase Briscoe riding with a new team. This could be the ultimate statement by Chase Briscoe. I did not expect this coming out of the gate for them. It's like, oh, okay, they're doing this already at a track that they have predominantly struggled with on speed. They're going to be a threat. Now, has that car received some damage? It has. It took a pretty big lick to the grill on Wednesday a qualifying. They are on Thursday a dual night. They've had to go out for the 2 sessions, but they're leading the field of green, and I don't think this is going to be the year where he wins it, but stranger things have happened. The last time we've seen a front row winner, most of us, as we're toddlers, are not even born yet.
Going to be fun to watch. I mean, you can make a case for, well, I mean, it's Daytona, so you can make a case for any of them really to win.
Really could.
Again, Logano's won this race before. Chastain was close. Hamlin, you don't have to really explain it because he's won this race 3 times. Busher is a good pick. Byron won this race before. Eric Jones, he got his first career win at Daytona in 2018. Bubba Wallace, 2-time runner-up of this race. Cindric, he's won the 500 before. Chase Briscoe, that Toyota looks super dialed in. So it's going to be fun. I mean, you've got some powerhouse picks here in the top 10.
It is very much anybody's game in the 500. It's a random pick. Let's call it how it is. There is no favorite in this race. It is any driver on any given day, and Much like the same as Indianapolis, it is often said with the Daytona 500 that the track chooses its champion, not the other way around. I don't think the track has a favorite yet, but she will have one when this race reaches its conclusion. You can name about 30 guys on this, 35 guys on this list out of the 40. And I would not question it if they were to win the 500.
I don't think I can question 500 winners. I just can't do it. The track does what it
I'd say
does.
35.
It doesn't matter. I mean, anybody's got a shot at winning at this point.
Only guys who don't own are the 4 guys that went home.
Yep. So with that, I think we're getting close to our picks here.
I think so. Do you want to get the 500 pick out of the way before rolling into our playoff prediction?
Let's do it. This is the exciting bit that we don't know who the others have picked for the 500, but this is how it's going to go. Let's make our picks for the 67th running of the Daytona 500.
So it will be Hal as champion last year. You have the right to the first pick for the Daytona 500. And based on the head-to-head between me and Sterling for the second spot, Sterling, despite me picking Jesse Love to win tonight's race, you scored 14 points to my a 13. So you will pick second tonight in terms of the 500.
As Sterling said, we don't know each other's picks for the 500. I don't even know my pick for the 500 because I have a wheel of 41 numbers.
All faith in the wheel.
Faith in the wheel. It tried to steer me right. I scorned it. We're spinning. All right. Who's the lucky guy? Oh, my. That'll be Ross Chastain going to victory lane at Daytona. He's going to find that dog in him again. I'm really hoping that happens.
He makes the correct move. He's made that move 3 times. Aims the winning move. It's bit him twice. Tomorrow will be the day.
All right. For my pick, I've thought a good bit about this. Kyle Busch winning would be a good story. 20 years trying, 20 years of frustration. 2.0 is what it would be. But I do have faith in another driver. He's come close to winning this race. He's been a runner-up in this race twice before. I feel like maybe, just maybe, if he finds himself in the right spot, third time will be the charm. I'm going to take former Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney to keep up the Penske dominance of sorts, their hot start to the season. Give me Ryan Blaney to win the Daytona 500.
Now, gentlemen, I could go any which way with my pick. You again, 35 guys I can and see winning this race, and I would not bat an eye. I really would not bat an eye for any of them. There are only 3 drivers on the grid right now who have had a finish inside the top 10 2 years in a row. Nobody has had more than 3 years. The longest streak is 2 for most consecutive top 10s. This race gives, it takes. There are many winners and many losers with this one. And quite frankly, there is 100 different ways I can go with this. But I think this race is going to come down to who I think is going to be at the front towards the end. And he's had a rough speed weeks thus far. But he's been pretty dang consistent. I feel like he's owed one from last year. I'm going with Alex Bowman. Last year's runner-up, bridesmaid turns into the 500 champion and just shuts down. Let's get it out of the way. Shuts down every single one of those people online yapping about his seat. That all ends on Sunday when he wins the Daytona 500. He secures his spot in Hendrick Motorsports long term, and that four-car organization stays the same for the next 5 years plus.
All right. So again, our picks for the Daytona 500. Hal is going with Ross Chastain. I'm going with Ryan Blaney, and Justin picks Alex Bowman. Chastain, Blaney, Bowman. Those are our picks to win tomorrow's running of the Daytona 500.
Now the question is anybody, one of us, being hypocritical? Because we've done our truck picks, we've done our Xfinity playoff picks. It's time, and we have to explain our cup picks. And we'll start with the champion, Hal, for this one, because I'll start it off with you, you as the champion. You got a very interesting lineup this year, Hal.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, hello. This is my picks. Some of you are going to love this. A lot of you will. First of all, not hypocritical. First of all, can't be. It's a wheel, not me. I can't be a hypocrite. The wheel's a hypocrite. Second of all, Ross Chastain is in my playoffs, 14th. I did see him getting a win somewhere and then getting bounced in the first round. Sorry. My champion will start top down and explain everybody. Chase Elliott, nothing but Chase. I was impressed with him at the Clash, and I feel like his driving is going to be a lot better. He's going to be able to finish the job better. No more of that consistency talk. Let's talk consistently winning. Christopher Bell will be the JGR representative in the Final Four. I think he's the best of the bunch, and I also am tired of Denny Hamlin being in the Final Four and doing nothing with it. Sorry. Kyle Larson, third. It's going to be hard for me to figure out how he ends up third out of that group, but I don't know. It's just not going to be his year. He's going to be really, really good like usual, but just not finish the job. And Ryan Blaney, we're stopping the Penske dominance at Phoenix. This is the year where I'm not seeing they're going to get there. They're going to find a way, but they're not going to win that race. Not again. Everyone will be so happy until they realize Chase Elliott had 3 wins to get the championship, and then they'll have to look themselves in the mirror. William Byron, Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick are my round of 8. All of them solid drivers all around. I just think that there's so many good drivers. Somebody's got to be left out of the fold, and I think Denny's going to take us a drop back. We're not going to be talking about penalties. It's just going to be a case of the guy gets beaten the round of 8. Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, Ty Gibbs, and Brad Keselowski. Again, Alex Bowman I think is good enough to be there, and people are still going to be yapping about his ride, but 9th isn't bad. It's not bad at all. I hate that it's where it comes to with Hendrick is if you're not top 5, you literally might as well not be there. But I think Ty Gibbs finally gets that win. Chase Briscoe is going to get some wins because I think Chase Briscoe has proven he can win in SHR final year equipment. I don't think it's going to be a seamless transition to JGR, but he's going to get a couple of wins in there. Brad Keselowski, it was kind of tough to pick with him because he's kind of boom or bust, and round of 12 seems like the in-between for him. The round of 16 is where all the fun ones are. Kyle Busch will win a race this year. I don't know where he is going to win one. We're going to have a lot of winners, I feel like. I didn't pick like who's going to get 0 wins and then run through the playoffs, but Kyle Busch gets a win. Ross Chastain, well, the wheel said he's going to win the 500. Todd Gilliland. I don't know which way he's going to do it, but he's the flagship at front row. I think he's going to have to get a win, but I also would not be surprised if somehow, some way, he outpoints some guys. Shane Van Gisbergen wins on a road course. Duh, there are no road courses in the first round. Sorry, he's kicked out first round. Now for Joey Logano not making the playoffs.
You've got some explaining on this one.
He was so close to not making it last year. He was literally on Kyle Busch's level for a lot of the season. it really came down to that win at the end of the year, pushing him in, and I think he misses it this year. I think some magic has been used up, and it's time for some things to fall back into place. It's not a skill thing, it's more of a, dude, you got too much devil magic to win the title that way and then make the playoffs again? No way. You're not making it next year. Bubba Wallace. I kind of wish I'd made my picks after the duels. Now kind of feel like with how he starts the season, that was a pretty good way to start it. He might make it, but I made that pick in thoughts of he's not going to do it because I've been through this rant many times. Daniel Suarez and Austin Cindric, basically this next run of guys are all very good. I think they're going to have good runs throughout the year. Top tens for Suarez, Cindric, McDowell, Haley, Gragson, they're all good enough, but they're too many good drivers for them to get in without winning. Ryan Preece, I will be honest, I just think that Ryan Preece has his ceiling, and that's why he's at 24th. I feel like it's a proven ceiling, and I'd love to be surprised. Carson Hocevar is the one I feel worst about because he very well could be the best of the Spire group, and I have him as the worst of the Spire group. Putting Justin Haley above Carson Hocevar in hindsight is the most questionable thing I think I've done. It's done. I did it. Carson Hocevar, maybe he just wrecks a lot. I don't actually have a good rational reason for why I put him 25th now. Cole Custer, 26th. I think they just fall back. I think Haas, as much as I want to say all the resources in one team will help, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that their resources are really going to be helped at the Xfinity level. Cup-wise, I don't think it will. Zane Smith, it's a little bit of an improvement. I'm kind of selling him short. I think he can make more improvement than that, but again, I'd have to then put him above Carson Hocevar, and I'm already having bad feelings about that. AJ Allmendinger, I'm banking on Colling not being very good, and he doesn't win a road course. That's the real tough one to sell. Riley Herbst, very well could be way above this. That's the cool part about the season is the new guys and new rides are in very good new rides, and they could very well thrive and be 20th. Or they could drop like a stone and we ask why they got the ride. There's no real in-between for these guys. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. doesn't win a super speedway. Austin Dillon doesn't wreck anybody to win and also doesn't get it overturned. He stays 31st. Eric Jones, Josh Berry, John Hunter Nemechek. Unfortunately, their teams I don't think are good enough, but Legacy's scaring me right now. They're really scaring me. Ty Dillon's also scaring me because he very well could be one of these 16 drivers by the end of tomorrow. So I'm a little bit frightened of Ty Dillon because of that. Cody Ware's last kind of by default. It actually was a conversation in my mind of Cody Ware or Ty Dillon. I'm really glad I feel better about it right now.
Yeah.
That is House lineup up done and dusted with. So those will be the 16. We'll compare them all at the end here, but we'll move on to Sterling's picks here. Right now, Sterling, what did you cook up for us as this time around?
Well, hopefully a good, hopefully an accurate prediction here. So yeah, I've got, I am also not a hypocrite. I have Ryan Blaney in my final four. Kyle Larson I picked as the champ. He's the best driver out there right now.
He is.
He's just that good. And I think if anyone is bound to get a second championship, is close to getting a championship soon, it's Kyle Larson. Larson will be deserving of a second championship. Absolutely. Christopher Bell, I see making it into the final four. Blaney, I already talked about. William Byron, he's consistent enough to get in there, to get in the championship four. So I have him in there as well. Chase Elliott, he's my first driver out of the championship four. I think he's going to have a better season than what he did last year, but I feel like something's just going to go wrong in the round of 8. Just got that feeling. Same with Denny Hamlin. Just don't think it's going to happen. Tyler Reddick, last year was a big breakthrough. I'm afraid this year he kind of takes a step back, which is why I got to have him 7th. Chase Briscoe, I think he'll have a solid first season in Joe Gibbs equipment, making the playoffs, making it into the top 10 in the points, and ultimately where he finishes. Alex Bowman, kind of the same as last year. Just build off of the momentum that you got last year. Keep going with it and get in the top 10 in points. Chris Buescher, he'll get in the playoffs this time around. I think he'll win a race. pretty early, I think, in the regular season. It's just a matter of keeping that through to the playoffs. I have Joey Logano making the playoffs this year. It is not an even year, Logano. And yes, last year was pretty bad. But I think Logano will step it up in performance this year, at least find a way to get into the playoffs and probably win a race. I don't think he'll challenge for the championship, challenge for the title. But Logano, I think, will make it in. Ty Gibbs, is this the year that he gets his first Cup win? I would hope for his sake it is. Otherwise, I'm going to start having questions about him in that seat. Ross Chastain, I think he'll find a way into the playoffs, and I think he'll win in the regular season to get in. Austin Cindric, I have him making the playoffs. I liked what I saw at the end of last season, how he finished last season. He's starting this season very well on the front row at the Daytona 500. I think he can win at a drafting track. If not, I think he can win at a road course. He is doing really well. The flat ovals too, New Hampshire, Gateway in particular. I think obviously he won at Gateway last year, but he's going to be someone to watch for. I expect a big improvement and Cindric starting to emerge as more than just the third Penske driver. I think he'll start to really emerge into a best version of Cindric that we've seen at the Cup level. Shane Van Gisbergen, I have him making it as well. I just think he's going to win one of the road course races to get in. Chicago street course in particular, I have my eye on him there. And then Carson Hocevar, I have as my last driver getting in. He's going to run consistently enough, and I think he'll find a way to win a race in the regular season. He is my surprise pick to get in the playoffs here. Hocevar is. Bubba Wallace is my first driver out. Although he did look really good. I wonder if it's going to take a little time with his new crew chief, Charles Deneke, if that's going to take some time getting used to. Growing pains there. We'll see what happens.
What about growing pains for Jeremy Bowens and Brad Keselowski then?
Yeah. Brad Keselowski, I have missing the playoffs as well. They last season was good for them, but they kind of tailed off as the season went on. I worry if that carries over into this season. Kyle Busch, I also have missing the playoffs. I worry that this is kind of where Kyle and Richard Childress Racing is at now, that this is where they're going to be. Todd Gilliland, I think, will take a step forward, but it's not quite enough to make the playoffs. Daniel Suarez, I'm afraid, has a disappointing year for Trackhouse Racing. He's only on a 1-year deal, and the performance, I'm afraid, just isn't there. My hot take prediction early here, Daniel Suarez will not be back with Trackhouse next season.
I could buy that.
I don't think that's going to happen just because, you got Connor Zilic waiting in the wings, and he's looking really good so far. AJ Allmendinger, just not sure where Colleague is on their pace. I don't really see him making the playoffs. Ryan Preece, I think he'll actually have a good season. The only problem is everybody else around him is kind of on the same level, if not better. So Preece, he'll be that third RFK car, but I'm afraid this is where he'll end up. Nothing against him. I just think, again, the talent level surrounding him at a bunch of other teams is kind of going to hold him to 23rd. Michael McDowell, he'll help elevate Spire Motorsports, but I think this is where he'll end up in 24th. Justin Haley, I wasn't sure that I liked what I saw at the end of last season. We'll see if he can prove me wrong, but right now I have him in 25th. Cole Custer for Haas Factory Team, just finish in the top 25 to top 30 in points is my expectation. 26 is where I have him. Then I have Zane Smith, 27th. Riley Herbst, 28th. Noah Gragson, 29th. Gragson, that might be a little low, but again, you're surrounded by talent from other teams. It's unfortunate because I'm sure they'll run well. It's just somebody has to finish 29th here.
The mid pack is so deep this year. That's the problem with all these. Kind of the same reason why we all have. I mean, we kind of have similar or bottom halves as you and Hal, at least.
I mean, you got Eric Jones 30th, which after the dual race, that might not age well at all, but still, again, Legacy Motor Club, got to pick it up. You've got to pick it up. Prove me wrong here. Josh Berry, 31st. I think he'll improve the Wood brothers, but again, the midfield is just so stacked this year. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 32nd. Yeah, that might be a little low, but still. Austin Dillon in 33rd. I'm afraid it gets worse for Dillon. I mean, I liked what I saw from the Daytona duel, but what if that's just a flash in the pan? John Hunter Nemechek, please, Legacy. For the love of God, improve your performance. Prove me wrong here. I also have Ty Dillon in 35th, Cody Ware 36th. Both of those just kind of by default.
Yeah, and I really can't blame you for any of those. Again, the mid pack this year is so tight. Like anybody from really, you could argue 20th. Like we kind of have a nucleus of 1 through 20. 21st through 30th is just a giant mess. And quite frankly, and it's why I'm not faulting either of you for it, because I'm also a victim of it. I was having a very tough time and figuring out who I was going to go with for that at those spots. And I'll go ahead and share mine now because I've got something pretty similar to you guys. Although I'll be honest, gentlemen, until proven otherwise, I have to stay with a Penske on top. I'm sorry. I have to. And I have to have Toyota at the bottom. I think this year, I'm going to say the hot take here, Christopher Bell is going to be the best driver this year. I think Christopher Bell is going to find that next step. He is going to be the guy who's going to have 5-6 wins this year. Kyle Larson's going to be right with him. William Byron's going to be a strong contender all throughout the year, but Christopher Bell is going to be the biased guy. The problem is Phoenix, and Phoenix. That's what this title comes down to, is Phoenix, and that's where my top 4 is at. So I've got Blaney, Byron, Larson, and Bell. I've got Alex Bowman. Oh, I'm not a hypocrite. I think Bowman is due for a breakout year. Same thing with Chase Briscoe. I just feel like Chase Briscoe is going to be one of those guys who have that breakout year, probably deserving of Final Four, but you got to keep in mind Talladega is one of these round of 8 races. I do think in 23-11 takes a step back with Reddick. Elliott, I think he's good. And again, we did these picks before the Super Bowl, so none of us took into account the clash or anything like that. Hamlin's on the downward trend. I feel like he's going to miss the round of 8 this year. Chris Buescher, I think, is going to have a very strong year. Or Ty Gibbs, I do agree he's going to get that first win. And I actually have Bubba Wallace sneaking into the round of 12 this year. I think Bubba Wallace is going to get that win. And based on what happened Thursday night, it might be 2. They have found something, I think, in that organization. I've got Keselowski in 13th, Chastain in 14th, Logano 15th, and Shane Van Gisbergen. So we all went with Shane Van Gisbergen as our popular pick. I went with the chalk. It didn't account for a wild card. So I'm going to get bit. I know for a fact I'm going to get bit. But my first 4 out, Daniel Suarez, Kyle Busch, Austin Cindric, Todd Gilliland. I don't see Suarez making it this year. After what I've seen downward trend the last couple of years, I think he's going to be close, but no cigar. I do think he's probably going to be leaving Trackhouse at the end of the year. Kyle Busch, I feel like, is also probably going to be done at RCR, and we'll find somewhere else to ride out his final days. Cindric, I think, is going to be better than what he was last year. I just think his competition is just going to be that much better. And Todd Gilliland, I think, improves, same thing, and just not going to be there. Michael McDowell gets fireworthy a better, but it's not going to be enough to crack top playoffs. AJ Allmendinger is going to be solid throughout the year. Riley Herbst, I'm a little bit higher than both of you on. I think at least with the 23-11 backing, he's going to be able to at least carry his own weight. Same thing for Ryan Preece. Hocevar in 25th. I usually can't justify it, but it's a second year for Carson Hocevar, so I'm going to use sophomore slump as my get out of jail free card on that one. Graythen, I feel like he's going to be in the same spot as Stuart Haas. Ricky Stenhouse, Hayek's always been in that 27th range, even when they were JTG. Justin Haley, I know you guys are high on him, and I really understand it, but he didn't really show it in the final 7 races where he was at Spire. And that's my concern, is he didn't really show it. So that's kind of where I got to judge him based on previous performance. Same thing with Cole Custer and where he was the last time he was in the Cup Series. I don't think the Haas Factory team's going to improve on that. Austin Dillon, I want to say lower, but I feel like you can't have an RCR car outside the top 30. Eric Jones, Zane Smith, Josh Berry, these guys should be higher, but the competition's just that much tough. John Herman didn't even check it. I just feel like it's the next worst of it. And I've got Ty Dillon and Cody Ware. Same with you guys. So we all went 34th, 35th, and 36th. We were universal on our picks there. And that is where my brain is at for these playoffs. And I'll go ahead and pull up the top 20 because I had to separate the graphic here. So these are the consensus top 20 picks. We have at Bubba Wallace, I basically overrid you two on that with how high I had him in our playoff prediction. But there is one missing driver on this list when we get to the 21 through 40. Overall, your thoughts on where we're stacking things up?
Well, I am clearly the only one who wants the feel-good Kyle Busch story. Well, not wants, has it happening, more like it. I am the outlier on that. You're the outlier on Bubba Wallace, but I can also see what... The thing is, with these standings I'm looking at, there's a rhyme and a reason for everything. There isn't really I threw him in just because I could throw him in. Bubba Wallace wouldn't be a shocker because at some point he's due to break through in the regular season, so I get it. I personally just don't believe in it because I haven't seen it happen yet. It's the same thing with you and Ryan Blaney winning the title. You don't believe another team's going to win until they do it. That's kind of where I'm at with Bubba Wallace. And I'm going to say it, we may be too high on SVG. We may be assuming because of road courses that road course could be a playoff race instead.
And I think we are underestimating AJ Allmendinger to do it.
That too.
I do feel like it. I thought he wasn't. I thought one of you guys were going to do it. And I had him in 22nd. I think he's going to improve calling, but I don't think he's going to get that win. But I do think we're underrating him.
It's kind of what I'm thinking. He'll improve the team. I just don't think he'll win.
And I mean, we're high. I think also we got a similar nucleus. We are all went universal on Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and Christopher Bell. I think all 3 of those picks, universally, we could see it. It's just a matter of our perspective at Phoenix. The only difference is we had 2 Hendricks. All of us had 2 Hendricks. It's just a question of Chase Elliott or William Byron. Byron would be the most consistent, but again, we did these picks. Most of us did these picks before the Clash even had gotten underway. Chase Elliott could definitely be one to break through this year. I would not be surprised by that.
Well, of course I believe that. Wholeheartedly right now, I believe that. He is a champion, and again, the Clash changed a lot of people's views of him, and it's the consistency from last year plus that little hint of him at the Clash that makes you go, he even has a hint of that consistency turning into wins. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Is he going to be Kyle Larson good throughout the year? I kind of doubt that, but I think when it comes down to how you get through the round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, it's a lot of consistency, and that's going to play into his favor. Kyle Larson has a lot of consistency, but at times he does revert to a boomer bust type of mentality out there, and that's what I think is going to do him in for me.
Well, we've got the top 20. Let's go ahead and also show now the top the rest of the field here, where we all went with the bottom three. We were very universal in that. Rest of the field, a little bit more of a chaotic cluster is the best way to describe it. We've got 10 place gaps with some of these drivers on this list.
And the one notable driver that I see is how I picked Carson Hocevar to make the playoffs, and you two have picked him to finish 25th.
We did. Yeah. Again, it's sophomore slump is the biggest thing I have the concern with. If this was year 3, it'd be top 22 for sure, but it's going to be tight. And I think again, we all expect Spire to be doing well. We all expect Ryan Preece to be where he is at. Everybody else is a complete mystery on this list.
That's the real issue. It's a complete mystery, and part of that complete mystery is the guys who are now teammates with Carson Hocevar. Michael McDowell is a pretty proven guy, but he's on a new team. The thing is, my mentality was Michael McDowell is the new guy on a new team, but he is a team builder. He will be the guy who drives the team in the direction they want to go in. That's my mentality. Is that going to be true? I don't know. I could very well see Carson Hocevar steal a win and end up in the playoffs, and I wouldn't be shocked because he showed signs of it his first season. That's the cool part about the depth in this field is that just about anybody up until about, let's say, 31st could win, and I would go, yeah, I am not completely stunned. Allmendinger, as we said, we're all looking at this. I'm looking at him in 28th for mine, and I'm like, that's going to bite me really badly. It's going to bite me, and it's going to bite a lot of us that we didn't put him in the playoffs if he finds a way at COTA or in Mexico City. There are a lot of tracks where Adrian Allmendinger could win. I think our problem, not our problem, what is going to bite us is we picked one road course ringer.
We did.
We got a lot of road courses on the way to the playoffs, and SVG and AJ Allmendinger could split them. It's not out of question. Justin Haley, for me, I basically put him because there has to be a reason he was so sought after by everybody. RFK was in on him for a while. Rick Ware had the lease agreement. Whatever was going on with Rick Ware, they had him for a reason. And then Spire came out and got him, and I can't imagine it's because they think he's a third driver for them. They got to see something that means he's going to be a top flight driver. I think he could do it this year, but it's really a tough sell. I see the flashes like when he raced SVG so well at the Chicago Street Course. Those flashes matter to me because that proved he's not just your super speedway guy. He can do well on a road course too. I think he puts it together because it's not his second year; it's his third year, isn't it?
And thereabouts. He's been around the block quite a bit since 2019.
3 teams in 3 years is tough, and that might be a little bit hard for him. But this is probably the best team he's been at.
2 more guys I want to highlight here. One of them is Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst, we're very separate on this. You guys have him towards the bottom of the pack. I have him a little higher up. In my opinion, is the talent going to be there immediately? No. But is the car going to be there? I think so. So I kind of do want to hear you guys' explanation as to why you kind of have them further down the list than what would be expected out of a 2311 car, essentially.
I just think 2311 is going to have for one, Riley Herbst I feel like he's cup ready, but I don't know if 2311 is the best place for him to start. Now, when I made my predictions, my hypothesis was that 2311 is going to struggle with this third car, trying to get it up to speed, trying to have it match up with Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. That combined with Riley Herbst's kind of, in my opinion, kind of a low ceiling would bring them to around this place in 28th.
All right. And I guess the other one is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Given Hayek's change, you guys both have him out in the 30s here. I had him at 27th. What's you guys' explanation for this? Because I feel like Hayek hasn't gotten worse. I feel like they're getting on the same level. They won a race last year. They won the 500 2 years ago. They've won
so.
races.
So
And they've won like 26th, 25th based on average speed.
I think they take a step back. I think the loss of Kroger, they don't have as much funding for resources over there. I mean, yeah, it's in essence a new team of sorts. They still keep a lot of people from the JTG Doherty era and bring it into Hayek, but I think it's a combination of losing some people, losing some money, and also other teams around them are gaining.
So my thought process isn't as much Ricky Stenhouse Jr. takes a step back. I think guys take steps forward. Zane Smith, I think, takes a step forward. I think that he is on, I don't want to say a better team, but it's a very, very, you know what you're getting with front row at this point, and you got the top tier support from Ford that I think is going to advance. I think the team is going to advance with that support. Last year they were getting used to it. I think this year they finally put it into action. Cole Custer, if I could throw a dart onto this second half of here, and I could have put Cole Custer anywhere on there, I feel like. But a lot of guys who, let's say, who you've got behind Ricky Stenhouse. Yeah, Cole Custer's one of them. Justin Haley, he is such an unknown one that you could say he could be up to 22nd or down to 28th. He could be even in the 30s, and I would probably not be completely shocked. He's all over the place, and that's not really when you're at Rick Ware Racing and you were at Colleague, you are gonna be all over the place. I don't know if there's really a way for you to put it other than that. If Spire advances, or then Justin Haley's gonna have a better year. If Spire stagnates, then he's gonna be a little further where you've got him. So I'm kind of taking the bet that Spire advances, which is dangerous because I'm saying a lot of teams are gonna get better, which is why I have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. falling back to 30th.
A lot of expectations for a lot of different teams this year. And we keep saying it all the time. We expect teams to rise, but in order for that to happen, somebody's got to fall. And we've already had 2 points paying races already this year. Not full points paying races, but points paying enough. And for the first 10 spots. But tomorrow, we award the full 40. We take out Helio Castroneves in terms of the points. He won't be running for any of those. But gentlemen, we're less than 15 hours from the Great American Race. It's here.
I have to ask the question. I'm going to steal it from wrestling. Are you ready?
I don't think we can ever be ready.
Yeah, you can't be ready for the Great American Race. You aren't ready for what it's got in store for you. We can't. We predicted it, but we can't predict how this is going to go down.
It is the one pick of the year where you could just throw a dartboard at any driver and you're going to have a better shot than using your brain. It is the one time of the year where you can't pick this race.
That's every race for me now.
It may be every race for you, but this is the Daytona 500. It is the Great American Race. I am looking forward to it. I'm hoping for a green flag finish. I'm hoping maybe for an overtime restart. But I'm hoping for a clean race. I'm hoping for a fun race. I'm hoping for a safe race as well.
Yes.
Oh, I do not need to see anybody going to the hospital. Oh, I am hoping for just a fantastic race. I hope the weather keeps away. There's a lot of things I hope for, but gentlemen, we're going to have to talk about it regardless on Monday. Time to be D for when we do the show, depending on the weather. I think they'll get it in tomorrow, but we'll have it on Monday and we'll talk news on Wednesday. But it's here, gentlemen. We are officially underway. We've got points paying races in the books. It's all time to drop the green flag in Daytona. The off season's over. It's time.
We've made it.
We did.
The night before Almost feels like the night before Christmas.
It is to us race fans. It is.
Yeah, in a sense, it is. So that's it. We've made our picks and we are ready for the Daytona 500 tomorrow in Florida. Going to be a great race. Hopefully it's entertaining. Hopefully there's some good storylines that come out of it, and hopefully the race is good. I hope it is. I mean, not saying it's going to be perfect, but it'll be something. That's for sure.
I think that we're all spiritually ready. Emotionally, maybe not, because we know how this goes.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised you said you're rooting for overtime. I can't do it. I can't do rooting for overtime.
After the 5 overtimes from last year, I'm just all overtimed out.
One is fine. One is fine. Once we go beyond that, that's a problem.
You know what's really fine? Finishing under green.
And two, I want a green flag finish. It's just the only thing I'm really requesting, and a safe race.
The thing is, I want a green flag finish. We're not going to get it, but I want a green flag finish. I'm already saying it now. We're not going to get it.
We're not going to get it. I almost guarantee you we are not going to schedule distance. It's tomorrow. Now, what like 500 plus or less than 500, it remains to be seen. But we're not ending 500 on the dot.
I feel like we could. I just think they're going to wad them all up in the last lap.
That may be fair.
And have someone go flipping down the backstretch.
Or the front stretch.
What if it's Corey LaJoie self-spinning into a flip on the backstretch?
I mean, he's been involved in flips before.
Don't speak that into existence.
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's just he's done it before.
If it happens, I'm blowing up the chat.
There's already enough like Talladega Indian burial ground vibes going on right now for this race tomorrow. We don't need any more.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't need to speak it into existence. It'll be fine. Let's just everybody be safe. Everybody keep your P's and Q's in check and make it to the finish. But it's going to be fun. But in order to do that, in order to enjoy the race, we need to get some sleep before then. So we're going to end it up here. That's going to do it for this edition of the Burnin' Rubber Racing Podcast. We thank you for watching or listening wherever you may be. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Please be kind to one another and be kind to yourself out there. On behalf of my co-hosts Hallie Stepp and Justin Palmer, enjoy the 500, everybody, and happy Daytona Day tomorrow. Until next time, this is Sterling Price signing off.